Here we go, guys. Herp House Rock. We're back at it. We got Jeff Musial here. He's got a broad array of animals that he works with. We're going to get into all of it. Dave's going to stare at you like a creepy stalker. Ben probably going to snack a little bit, but we're going to go in.
Nice.
Check it out. Awesome. Jeff Musial, a guy I have a relationship with for years. Both those guys are from Western New York. Great guy. Really looking forward to this one. Jeff, I want to start out not so much the beginning, man, but why don't you go ahead and put your resume out there? Because I don't think, not that nobody knows who you are, but you have your niche in the hobby. So I want to hear everything about, just what you've been doing over the last 20 years. Because, like I said, you got a great resume.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. It all started like everybody else back when I was a kid, into the reptiles, into mammals, into everything. And my dad ended up knowing a lady, got me a job in a pet store. Like I was 14 years old, started working in a pet store. And then it was just all downhill from there, I should say, or uphill. I don't know how you want to do it, but it was all good things. I found like exactly like what my calling was. Like I used to DJ at raves and nightclubs, and I was straight edge, and I was in hardcore bands and crazy stuff. But my calling has always been animals and reptiles. So I remember, and it's funny because so many people pick on like PetSmarts and Petco's and things. And I remember going into PetSmart. We went to the zoo, me and my mom and my brother and my sister. We went to the zoo, and afterward, my mom's like, we gotta get dog food. So I was probably like 12 years old. We walk into a PetSmart, and it was when they had the little glass things like in the wall, and they had the little like hide box that Zoo Med made with a little freaking cactus. And this lady throws crickets in, and this little Savannah monitor about 6 inches long runs out and grabs this cricket, mashes it up, swallows it down. I'm like, dude, that's a miniature Komodo dragon, and you can own that? Like, this is mind-blowing. Like, I'm like, this is insane. And I'm like looking, and I go, $49.90. I was like, Mom, I will cut everybody's lawn in the neighborhood. I'll do whatever, So they ended up, and she said, no. I got the job in the pet store then, and then I wasn't even getting paid. They were just kind of ordering me stuff all the time. I was just bringing home animals. But as it went on, I got more and more into this, and I'm blessed to have two awesome parents that were just kind of like, yeah, well, growing up in Buffalo, I was straight edge. I didn't smoke, do drugs, drink. And even when I got older, my buddies that would drink, I would drive the car, and everyone would throw me money. And in my mind, I'm going $50, $60, $70, dude, $30 more, and I can go get those 2 red-tailed boas. That's all. I was just programmed like reptiles, all the time. And that's what it was, because a lot of people are like, what about the mammals and things? But I never was big in the mammals at first. To me, it was always like, oh, something furry. Like that's something besides dogs. And that's something you'd feed to, like, your reptile. Like, who wants that, And as I got older, I started getting more and more into reptiles, and took over my parents' basement and just had like crazy amounts of reptiles and just everything, and my idea was to like get a job working at a zoo or something like that. I went to school for animal management, animal behavior. You can graduate, get a job at a zoo. And at the time I went for an interview, and they're like, yeah, $4.25. We're going to make you head of the educational department, partial benefits. This is going to be awesome. And I stood up in the middle of the interview, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm going to start a company today, and I'm going to take all your business. And they're like, oh, we'd love to see it, Mr. Musial. I'm like, no, really, that's what I'm going to do. And this fire just like went nuts. And I'll never forget, I started doing a few things here and there, a couple of reptile shows for kids, but I had all these reptiles, really good, like big Savannah monitors and jungle carpets and stuff that you could do anything with. And I'll never forget this. I was still going to college, kind of driving automobile parts around to like Ford and Chevy plants. And Dave will probably know up here, Kiss 9.5, a morning show. It comes on, and they're like, what should we get Wheeze for his birthday? So I picked up the old Razor flip phone, company flip phone, like $2.99 a minute, right? And they're like, you never use this unless you're dying in a ditch. So I'm like, well, let's give it a whirl, man. Roll the dice. So I call up, and it went through, and Janet Snyder at the time was like, Kiss 9.5, what do we get Wheeze for his birthday? I'm like, a reptile birthday party. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm going to come to your house, wrap you up with snakes. We're going to put alligators in your swimming pool. Like, I just got crazy. And they were like, kept me on for like 11 minutes. And she's like, okay, what's name of your company? And I always wanted to open a serpentarium and call it Nickel City Serpentarium. And at the time, I'm like, Nickel City Reptiles. She's like, okay, do you have a number? I had a pager number that I gave out. So I give the pager number out, and next thing you know, she's like, thanks, this is great. If you guys want to party, call him, whatever. Hang up the phone, call my pager company to get the added on $3 a month voicemail before the beep. And I'm like, you reach Nickel City Reptiles and Exotics. If you want a birthday party, leave your name and number. Someone will call you back. 157 calls, 154 bookings. Wow. I went into my job the next day. I'm like, I quit. I finished my college. That was just when college was ending. And my dad's like, your sister's a teacher. Your brother's a teacher. What are you going to do for a living? Teach people how to pet snakes? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go with it. If you don't got passion, you don't got nothing, And also, my big saying is, you don't have balls, you don't have nothing. You just go with it, man, And my parents were like, are you serious? And so fast forward a couple of years later, I got my own house. I bought it purposely for the basement. I had all the reptiles down there. I met my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and she's like, this is why I married her. She's like, you ever think about furry creatures? I'm like, no. She goes, 89% of school teachers are women at the time or whatever. She Googled something or whatever. And she goes, you get furry things, you'll do every school from here to freaking Cleveland. I'm like, okay. So I went to my buddy's place. I bred some blackhead pythons back in the day before anyone even knew what the hell they were, I think. I got them from a friend. They got them from Dick Gergen. And I ended up breeding them. And I took them down to this guy in Kentucky. And he was like, for a pair of blackheads, I'll give you whatever it was, 15 grand. I'm like, great. And I'll buy some mammals, I get down there. I called them the day before. Me and my wife get in the car with these blackhead pythons. I got a Ford Escort at the time. We drive down to Kentucky. I get there. He goes, you're not going to believe this. My dog ate half the money. My tractor broke. My wife left me. I'm like, this sounds like a country song. He's like, but I got a kinkajou, a blue and gold macaw, 2 prairie dogs, 2 hedgehogs, a marmoset monkey that'll sit on your finger, all this stuff. And he goes, and I'll give you like all that in like $5 grand. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I take things as signs. A lot of things I take as a sign. So I'm like, this has got to be a sign. Oh, and a baby wallaby that was riding shotgun on my wife's lap. Nice. And then we end up driving home. My wife looks at me and she goes, whatever, let's give it a whirl. And yeah, we went from there. Then I changed the business name to Nickel City Reptiles and Exotics. And then I started doing like a lot of bigger events, stuff for like the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres and providing animals for like Jeff Corwin and Jack Hanna and Dave Salmoni and the Crocodile Hunter and all these people I was bringing animals for. And then I ended up just kind of get my foot in the door there, and then just started going on the shows myself and bringing animals on myself and doing all that. But while all this went on, and I built this, we started doing the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. I got on that myself. Like no agent, no manager. People still can't believe that. Like I was in the hallway, Snoop Dogg was there, and I was like, yo, Snoop Dogg. I was bringing animals for Jeff Corwin. I'm like, can I wear your chain? So there's a picture of me with a giant Uzi and a thick gold chain, and throwing up like West Side signs. And he's like, no, like this, cuz. And he's showing me. So I'm in the hallway, this little white dude with all his posse and his gold chain. I'm doing all this. And the people there, it was for Conan O'Brien. They're like, who is this kid? Like, what is he on? They're like, no, Jeff Corwin's on. They're like, where's Jeff Corwin? He's in the dressing room. They're like, well, who's this, clown? But I started just goofing around, and we ended up pushing it to do go on from the Tonight Show. Steve Harvey, I guess, appeared on like Eastbound and Down, iCarly, like just crazy stuff. And then while all this was going on, I still had my passion for reptiles, and I still just had crazy things that a lot of people think I'm weird. I'm the first one to say it. Like I heard some of Dave's podcast where he's like, dude, I just freaked out, had to leave. I get I didn't know what anxiety was till the last couple of years of my life. I've always kind of kept to myself. People would take it the wrong way. They're like, he's cocky, he's arrogant. I'm just weird, dude. I have my own stuff. I do my own thing. I don't like drama. I like to stay out of all the crap. And then I guess people can kind of take it as shady. But my whole thing is I just do my thing. I've bred so many wicked species of reptiles and that, but no one even knows because I just got a guy in California or a doctor in New Jersey that would buy everything I had. So I never even till recently start doing Tinley and stuff. But yeah, dude, it's just been one hell of a crazy ride. Just one hell of a crazy wicked ride.
I like it. sure everybody has a lot of questions right now, but I have one. What color was your pager?
Black.
Ah, you pussy, man. There's so many better options than black.
I know, but see, I got a black one and I got a black Nokia phone to go with it. So when someone called me, I could hit them up on the Nokia phone. And I remember one day going home and having like a $375 cell phone bill. And I'm like, what was that all for? Like, I didn't call anyone. I would just have my cell phone. And then I got a navy blue pager to go with the navy blue Nokia phone, you know? So
Okay.
Daryl's car audio. Oh,
I like it.
Funny.
Oh, shit, man. Shit, you didn't even bring up, you do the Erie County Fair, which you're a big attraction there, which is huge. Erie County Fair is one of the biggest ones in the region, if not the East Coast completely.
Yeah, we do a big exhibit there for sure every year.
Yeah.
I've been to the Erie County Fair.
You've been there?
Of course, yeah. It's fucking huge.
I've been there.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
wasn't
crazy.
in the reptiles then.
Here's a funny story. Brad, you know Brad McCarthy?
McCarthy?
Yes. When I was a kid, you'd go to Erie County Fair, and he had this trailer you'd walk through, and they had like some snakes in there. And I always kept that in my mind. And then like maybe 5 years ago, I bought a 40-foot Hallmark trailer, gutted it. My buddy who's a carpenter built all the woodwork. I'll have to send you guys some pictures. It's sick. Or like on Facebook, I took all fake rock work, did all the walls, and it's a venomous snake trailer. So you walk through it, and it's the sickest thing you've ever seen. It looks like on my Instagram, you can see there's a picture of an eastern diamondback, and there's like a white-tailed deer antler and pine cones and some Spanish moss, and people are like, "That's great. Where was that? Where was that in Florida?" I'm like, "That was in my snake trailer, man. I took like chunks of where all these things were found and just set it up killer." So like when people came through there, they were like, "Holy shit!" Like I had all the bamboo, I had my king cobra in there, and people were like, "What? Like, is that real?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's real deal, man." Like we do a lot at the Erie County Fair. We won like best exhibit at the fair like 3 or 4 times now, which is awesome. And I just keep it like I charge like $1 a person. And it's funny because you get some people that are like, "Oh, it must be nice. 1 million people come through here. What are you buying, a Ferrari?" I just laugh. I'm like, dude, this all goes back to my animals. You know what I did? I put up an 8-stall camel barn for all my camels. And then I went and put in, outdoor pens for all my lemurs. Then I went and put in a whole new misting system and all the Tetra 70-gallon breeder cages with rock walls for all my Agurnia. Like everything went back to my animals in one way or another. If I wanted to rip somebody off, I'd charge like $5 a head to walk through, you know? I charge $1 just to have more people fall in love with animals, you know? So that's what we try to do.
No, dude, I'm looking through your Instagram right now, and I have so many questions.
Go away, go shoot away, man. I
don't want to interrupt, but like this is amazing. Like we got some stuff to talk about.
Thank you.
Go on, Dave.
It's funny, man. It's crazy because I've just been in this for so long, and like I've known Dave, and we've done deals, we hit it off, and always talking that, but I always feel weird, and like my wife's like, "Dude, you stand in your own way." Like even when I was at Tinley, people were like, "Hey, Jeff," and I'm like, "Hey," and my wife goes, "That was like rude. You were like, 'Hey,' and you walked the other way," and I'm like, "I'm just weird, man. Like I feel like I don't know, like it's just weird. Like I don't know. So I'm now by doing these podcasts and that I'm trying to step out of my own shadow, you know, and just when I go to Tinley, be like, "What's up, dude?" Hang out with people, drink some beers, and just have a good time rather than, you know, always stand behind my shadow. So yeah, it's pretty wild. So yeah, if you guys see me somewhere, say what's up and, you know, have a beer or something like that, you know?
Absolutely.
Right. So I think you're not straight edge anymore, buddy. Or you just watch them drink the beer?
Dude, I'm not straight edge anymore. I tried. It was hard. It was a long time. And I'm not, you know what? It's so funny though, because I don't really drink a lot, but every now and then I like a nice Bud Light, you know, a nice Bud Light. I'm an old man. I got kids now. I like a Bud Light. I go out to dinner with my wife. I like a nice little glass of wine, you know, and not big on drugs or, you know, I don't like smoking, but like I'm a hard worker, dude. Like I'm like manual labor shit. Like I had people before COVID that worked for me. Now I'm doing it all. I'm swooping camel shit. I'm cutting bear cats claws. I'm like, you know, taking stuff, medicating rattlesnakes' faces. I'm just doing it all, lifting 40 bales of hay. So it's like I'll touch a little bit of the CBD every now and then. You know what I mean? A little CBD.
Right on.
That makes you feel. I don't care what anyone says, but they're like, oh no, that stuff makes you feel good, man. Gets the joints feeling good, and
absolutely.
You know,
anti-inflammatory properties.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
I heard about
your
edible story, Dave. I'll never do.
Oh, well, there's a million of those stories out there, man. If you're at Tinley, you've heard a Dave Edible story. But another big thing about Jeff, you guys get ready to get surprised about something. He bred blue tongue skinks. Go fucking figure. Another blue tongue skink breeder.
What?
Dude,
and you know what? He gave me the best breeding tips.
Dude, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was crazy. Now I'm gonna hit you back with some old school shit right now, like old school shit. I'm talking like Pete Weiss. Like you get the 3 fold out freaking price sheet in the mail. Like I'd sit at my mailbox and drool. I remember like I sold some like old skateboards and stuff or something at the time, and I was like, Mom, I got enough money. I was like 15 or something. Can I buy a blue tongue skink? And I got Erie Jayas from Pete Weiss that was breeding them at the time. And I got like one, and then I got another, and then I got another, and I had them set up in my parents' basement, like 40 breeder fish tanks. And he was like, you want to feed them like cichlid pellets, trout pellets and stuff. I'm like, what? So I was doing all this crazy stuff. But when I started introducing them, the first ones I bred were the Erie Jayas, and they were vicious, dude. So I remember giving Dave a tip. I was saying, like, dude, when you put them together, it sounds kind of crazy and kind of weird, but I put a kid's sock over the female's head because I had females actually rip males' lips off from one side all the way to the other, their teeth and their jaws there, and they're just flapping, and infections, and it was crazy. So I learned with Erie Jayas, I was like, that was just crazy that I did that. And then when I called Pete and told him, he's like, you did what? How'd you do that? I'm like, I followed your instructions on your care sheet. Cool them down, warm them up. I'm like, put them together in December, do this, do that. And we did it. And back then, I couldn't give them away. I could not give them away. I think I sold them to a local pet store for like $25. People are like, oh, these are imports. I'm like, no, I bred them. And they're like, yeah, okay, sure you did, buddy. And then I got into the Northerns. So I got into Tanagars, which I really like, but their attitude sucks. And they were cool. I used to keep them together, and we just spit out babies every year. And I'm like, this is great. But the babies were even more shitty than the adults with biting and hissing. And I'm like, these would be so cool, little pygmy blue tongue, if they didn't have such a crappy attitude. And then I started breeding Northerns. And then I just bred them because I loved them. And I was selling those to different wholesalers for like $55 a piece. And I would pump out 100, 200 of them. And at some point I was like, I couldn't even give these things away. Like nobody wanted them. I was like, how do you not? This is like and doing my educational shows, you'd always get the parents like, we want to get you to come and do a party, but we want to have something for Jimmy. And I'm like, blue tongue skink. So it's funny because I'll see people now at the Erie County Fair, Dave, and they'll come up to me like, you did my party when I was 6. I'm like, how old are you? They're like 30. I'm like, what? Or 26 or something, 20 years later. And I'm like, but, and I still got that blue tongue skink. He even went to college with me. I'm like, dude, that's so cool. And then they'll show me pictures on their phone. I'm like, that is super, super wild. And it's just, I used to sell those as like package deals. I'd go get all my stuff wholesale and then sell them a blue tongue skink and the setup and the reptile and everything they needed. And, it's funny, but I turned a lot of these kids into like, I see a lot of these kids at reptile shows now and stuff, and they're in their 20s and stuff. They're like, dude, you sold me my first skate and my lizard. And I'm like, well, thank your parents. You had cool parents that allowed you to have a lizard. They're like, yeah, but you got me hooked, man. And then I'll see them at like the Buffalo show or Rexpo or something up here. Even some kids at Tinley, and they're like buying lychees and ackies, and it's super cool, man. That's what it's all about. Just getting people like so pumped, because this is really, besides like some of the bullshit drama, this is really one of the coolest freaking hobbies there is. Like, it's just badass. It's one of the only hobbies you can do where you can actually, it can almost pay for itself, really, and even make some money if you want. If not, you can just sink all the money into it and who cares. But it's just cool, man. It's like, I've met a lot of really cool people doing this, and it's the only thing that ever really stuck. I snowboarded, I motocross, I did everything. Still have a snowboard, still have a dirt bike. I'll ride them every now and then. But reptiles are just like my passion, and you just get hooked, man. There's something about them, you know?
Oh, real nice.
You have quite a list of celebrities that you have introduced to animals, man. Holy cow.
That's my favorite right there. Chevy Chase, dude. That dude was the coolest dude on the planet. I grew up loving him. I did something for National Wildlife Federation for his wife that does this dinner every year. And we were on the green carpet, and I was hanging out with him with the wallaby. And he was talking to me. He's like, "You like the tie? You like the tie? It's a dog tie, or whatever it is, a cow tie, a dog tie." My wife said I couldn't wear it, but I said, "I'm wearing it because it's a dog tie." And I'm like, dude, he is awesome. Like, it's awesome when you meet these celebrities that, like, you watch movies and you're like, that fucking dude rules. And then you meet him and you're like, he's just as cool. Like, me and my brother were talking to him, and it was like Chevy Chase Christmas Vacation all over again. It was like the end of November when this took place. He was talking about Christmas. He was talking about, me and my brother just BSing with him. But God, dude, he's a really cool freaking dude. Lives on a farm outside of New York. At the time, he was talking to us about, like, wanting to get some miniature. His wife had some miniature donkeys and goats and stuff, and he was like, can we get a kangaroo? Can you have a wallaby? He is awesome, man. He's a great dude.
I like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump back and we'll jump forward. The skink thing too, your baby sock trick. Whenever I was at a show way back in the day when I was selling them again, back in there, like $80 a piece, and they didn't really move very fast, but they made such great pets. So you just kind of kept fighting through it, and I enjoyed the species. But when everybody be like, "So tell me about the breeding," and I'm like, "Well, I'll be honest, it's pretty fucking rapey, buddy." I was like, "If you can't handle rape, you're not gonna be able to handle this." And I was like, sometimes just gotta put a baby sock over the female's head. It sounds wrong, but I was like, you just gotta do it. But that's because
I remember telling you that in an apartment in Buffalo. In your apartment in Buffalo. And I'm like, dude, don't think anything weird of me when I tell you this. It's gonna sound weird, but I had too many animals, like 16 years old, paying a $1,400 vet bill to have the male's face sewn back on,
Yeah, no, for sure. And, like you said, the pet store scene, I mean, that's, it's a big part for a lot of people. I had my pet store when I lived in Madison, Wisconsin, that I was the luckiest kid in the world. I was 5 years old. Here's my house. You go out my driveway and there's a fucking pet store. So every morning I'd wake up.
That's like a dream. That's a dream.
Oh, my God. Every day I sat in there. I probably irritated the shit out of everybody, but every day I was in there all day long. I remember very little about it, except one day they put me in charge of finding like a loose bull snake. And I just remember looking at every box in the building, looking at underneath every log. Like, I spent all day. I don't even know if there's a loose snake. They might have just tried to distract me.
They just told you that. They just told you that to keep you busy, because they're like, if not, Dave's going to ask us questions. Hey, dude, you want to be really cool? Find this snake for us.
Yeah, that's it, man. Good move. I mean, that was smart. That kept me busy that day. I might have looked for it all week for all I know. But the impressions, and even like the Buffalo scene. I started out going into Blue Lagoon over on fucking.
That's where I worked, Harlem Road. That's where I started working.
No shit, yeah. So I used to go into Blue Lagoon when I was going to Cheektowaga Central, and they'd have like a spotted python every once in a while, and occasionally they might have a retic, and it wasn't a big display, but they always had some unique reptiles in there. And then Mark Imes Pets out in Kenmore, that was the next one. That Mark Imes Pets is why I became a breeder, because a guy who worked there told me about everything there is breeding. And I found about the industry, and I started obsessing and going to the Cleveland show, Columbus, and it just escalated, man. Like, there was no stopping me at that point.
Awesome. Yeah, they're all Markheim now. The place has been bulldozed, and it's an auto zone.
That's tragic. Honestly, tragic. Because that was one of the nicer pet stores you can go in. It was well kept. It was a beautiful reptile department. It was a great store.
Yeah, it was great. I loved that place. I worked there too. I was like 18 and starting to go to college for a while. I worked for Diane for a while, but yeah, dude, it's one hell of a ride, man. Yeah, that's how it all starts, the pet stores.
But let's make this a little sad. We're going to talk about 2020, buddy. I know this one has not been good to you. We're all trapped in the house, like you said, lacking employees now because you're having trouble keeping the business going. Can't do your birthday parties, no school events. How's it going now, man? You said you've been doing a little bit of traveling. Things starting to pick up for you a little bit?
It was with summer. We were starting to do some outside events and things. And then our lovely governor started putting, the amount of people that could be at a show and the amount of people that could be here and be there. And it just got bad, and it got to the point where to normal people, people writing me emails like, oh, sell some animals. I'm like, dude, sell your dog, sell your kid. Like, I'm not selling animals, like that's just not my thing. And I tried to do the best I could do. And I was blessed here and there with like different animals. I had a pretty decent breeding year, so I could move some stuff and help out that way. What really helped, because we got denied for every state loan and PPP loan and everything else, was, to get sad, like, I won't get into who and what, but I did a show for a gentleman, and his daughter was 9 years old with autism and Down syndrome. And she never spoke, she never smiled, she never laughed. I did a show, and I was there, it was supposed to be an hour. I was there 2.5 hours. I didn't give a shit about anyone else in the room besides her. And I had her laughing, talking. Her dad would always go, ain't that some shit? But at the end of the show, I'm like, hey, listen, Ellison, we're 2.5 hours. I don't have any more animals left. And she's like, ain't that some shit? And the whole party lost it, right? So afterward, the dad's trying to pay me, and I'm like, no, man, you're good friends with my brother. They work together. I'm like, I can't do this. This is just, I try to get back wherever I can. St. Jude's, Camp Good Days, kids with cancer, because no one should have cancer, but especially kids. So I'm like, I try to get back as much as I can. And he's trying to give me money. He mailed me a decent check, and I mailed it back to him. And I'm like, there's no way, dude. I just wouldn't feel right, man. Karma, just do something good for someone else, And he was like, when this all hit the fan, he was working with my brother, and he's like, dude, what's your brother going to do? He just lost. I was doing Jeff Animal Guy Tour in Jersey Shore. We sold out like 4 days of shows, 2 shows a day, to see some jackass with animals from Buffalo come and do some one-hit wonder, one-lines, and goof around with some animals, which is pretty cool. And we lost all those shows. Minnesota, like, stage shows. Like, up here, like, you're from Buffalo, like Shays. Like, we'd sell out of Shays, and like I do merch and all this stuff. None of it. So I was like, what am I going to do? So my brother's friends like, dude, let's do a GoFundMe. And I'm not one forever to do that. Like, I don't like to, like, too proud to beg type thing. Like, I can't. And then all these people came out of the woodwork, from like Buffalo football celebrities to Sabres players to all these people I've done stuff for, and charities I've done stuff for, and people I worked with. And we raised over like 30 grand, which was unbelievable. Like, I was crying every day. Like, dude, like, how good people are. I'm like, this is just going to change me as a person. Like, there's a lot of other educators. They tried raising money. I looked at their GoFundMe. I threw them a little bit of money because I didn't have money. But I'm trying to help these people out. They had raised like $200 or $1,500, and I'm like, dude, like, everybody was hurting, but it was just all the stuff I did for people over the years that I never wanted anything for. These were all the people that were like donating, and it was wild, dude. It was just really, really crazy, because like my brother would call me. They donate money anonymously. My brother could see the names, and he's telling me names of some of these people, big names, and so I was like, wow, like unbelievable. So it was, thank God, dude. Thank God, because I would have never made it. I don't know what I would have did. And now we got the second round, which is awesome. Yeah. But I'm trying to do what I can do, and just keep pushing forward, keep moving, and trying to stay positive. There's an old movie that one time where they're like, I think it was like that. It was in Seattle. I don't know if it was like Edward Scissorhands or something. The girl was like, "It can't rain all the time." That was like my little slogan I was going with. I'm like, one day at a time. And the comeback greater than the setback. I'm trying to be so positive. And then after about 10 months of it, now I'm starting to get like, all right, man, I'm done. It's just.
No, I understand that. No, like I said, in some ways it was a good year for the industry, but just not every part of the industry. We all talk about how animal sales were up and things like that. But, like you said, guys like you, educational people, my buddy Eric Herb over in Cleveland, he does a lot of educational stuff. He lost all his stuff. Barely got a rhythm going after a little while, and then it all ended again, like you said. So It's tragic, man. And, let's keep this tragedy going, man. I want to talk about the Big Cat Act that's going on right now. Is it the Big Cat Safety Act, or what exactly? How is that one titled?
they call it the Big Cat Public Safety Act, and to be honest with you, it's bullshit. There's already laws in place. I have CBW permit, so I can actually move tigers over state lines and leopards and things like that. I don't have tigers. I've had tigers in the past. I've helped raise them for people, but I try to think smart. You know what I mean? Like, those tigers are gonna get big. They're gonna eat a lot of food. I don't have a zoo, so I'm not gonna get tigers, lions, bears. Oh my! You know, I want to have things that I can go in with and handle. Like, I have 2 mountain lions, but I could put them on a leash and take them for a walk. Like, that's how good they are. I don't bring them out and do things where. Another thing is, I don't do a lot of stuff in New York. You can't do the public like pet and play with cats and that. And even if you could, I wouldn't do that. Like, I don't. There's certain things that I just kind of don't believe in when it comes into some of these things. And people can get mad at me. People can get pissed, but I just don't think it's right. Like, my animals come to me, they stay with me their whole life. Unless there's a situation where, like, they're not getting along with the other one we have, or they're just unhappy and they're dangerous and they're just wanting to get the hell out of there, we'll find a zoo or something for them to go to. But 99% of my animals stay with us their entire life. So I don't want to go and get something that's going to get huge. We're going to have to keep feeding it. And really, it has nowhere to go, you know? And that's where one of our mountain lions came from. It was a pet and play club that someone had, and they were using it. And then once it gets 25 pounds, they can't do anything with it. So we end up getting it, and she'll stay with us for we have Nala and Nikita, and they're both about 150 pounds apiece. And one is 10 now. I think she's 10, and the other one's 7. But, you know, no more big cats for me. But that's not where this all stems. The same thing with, like, the reptile thing. Like, I just don't think that there has to be any more laws as far as the Big Cat Safety Act, because I'm already licensed with state, federal. So is anybody that has tigers. There's no people with a tiger in their backyard. I mean, there might be, you know, here and there in some of these random states, but there's only a few states where you're still even allowed to do that. But there's not, like, you know, there's 5,500 tigers. Like, you go down the street and someone's got a tiger in their backyard. It's not like that at all. It's the people that are licensed. You got to be federally licensed. You got to have endangered species permits. There's so much you have to have. But one thing that, like, pisses me off about it is there's enough shit going on in the world right now, and that's when the AR groups are going to try and slam in all these extra rules. Have it be reptiles, have it be mammals, have it be the Primate Safety Act, have it be. And what pisses me off is when you have the people that are like, well, I don't own a monkey, so fuck it. No, you don't own a monkey, but you know what? You own a dog or a cat or a goddamn guinea pig, and they're going to come for that too. Mark my words. And when you put something on Facebook and I commented, and I was just like, I don't ever comment with that shit either. I'm a weirdo. I just don't. I keep it myself. But when you wrote that, I was like, dude, people better wake the fuck up, because just because you don't have a tiger doesn't mean they're going to start picking it off the list. Look what happened at, like, Petco and things like that. Oh, if you stop carrying big birds, we'll leave you alone. No, they didn't. They just kept going and going until they weren't even going to have bearded dragons there, because then they went after Max Reptiles and Reptiles by Max, and they're like, look at how he keeps his bearded dragons, hoping that PetSmart would not keep bearded dragons anymore. Petco would have bearded dragons because, oh, look how they're kept, and that would be their way to get them out of there. And the more you move people away from animals, the more people forget about animals. So you got to keep animals, and that's what I feel like my job is for, to be in your face. Some people might be like, he's loud and obnoxious, but you know what? You're fucking watching me, and you're tuning in, and you're watching animals, and you're learning about animals. And when you fall in love with something, you want to conserve it and you want to save it. And that's what they need to do, because there's too many people that are like, oh, I don't own a berm. Fuck it. I keep ball pythons. Guess what, bitches? They're coming for your ball pythons next. I'm sick of the bullshit, man, and I'm not afraid to say it. It's these people, like, they posted something. The guy's like, a tiger compared to a dog is kind of a falsity, wouldn't you say? So I'm like, I don't even have anything. I wanted to write underneath there, God bless you, because you're fucking you have no clue what's going on in the world. If you don't think they're coming for your dogs and cats and everything, do a little background check on AR groups. They think a happier world is with no animals. No animals, not even a damn goldfish. So people got to start putting their foot down. And the shit that's going on with, like, US Ark and stuff right now, my hat's off to them. Like, when I went to Tinley, the first time I did Tinley last October. No, the October before that, I think it was. I don't know if this COVID screwing me up. But I walked up by Goss and I threw $100 bill on the table. And he's like, here, thanks, take a t-shirt. I'm like, I didn't want a t-shirt, but thank you. And I kept walking. He's like, who are you? What's your name? And I'm like, I'm a weirdo, man. I'm a fucking weirdo. So I just walked by, but I was like, I donated that. I was there with my wife and kids. You know, we went to dinner that night. I wasn't able to really hang with people because the wife and kids came along. We were swimming in the pool and shit. But like, anyway, I could try to help. The next day I went by again. There was a woman there. I handed her another $100. She's like, oh, here, do you want the t-shirt? Or I'm like, no, just donation, you know? And I just feel like enough of the reptile people are really starting to come together. But if the animal industry as a whole could come together, that would be one hell of a thing to reckon with. And that's what people need to do. It doesn't matter. Like, people got to get off the bullshit of like, oh, I breed ball pythons. Like, I can't talk to people that breed monitors and big snakes. Or, oh, dude, you're a blue-tongue skink guy, but they're never going to take my skinks. Oh, yeah, they will. They'll come for them, too, because they'll find some way to help. Oh, kids are getting salmonella. We got to ban those. You can't have those. Or they're going to find some way to take shit away. So people got what I like is what I'm seeing with USARK and people saying, no, like, fuck you. Like, we're going to stand up for our rights and we're going to do what we got to do now. Because for too long, there's been too many people like, oh, whatever. They're not going to be able to do it. Or like my wife would say forever, you get so worried. It's never going to change. No one's going to. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, now kids can't touch alligators when I do shows. Now kids can't touch big snakes when I do shows unless it's a boa. And now kids can't hold a monkey, you know, like, or touch a monkey or that. And not like I would do that anyway, but they just kept chipping away at stuff. And then it gets to the point where it will be like animals won't be able to leave your facility, or animals won't be able to be in front of somebody unless you're front of, you know, you have a 20-foot wall in front of you. So it just sucks, man. And I just, you know, I don't go out there like, you know, look at me, you know, I support USR. I just like, I donate quietly, you know, I'll send a check, you know, John Wayne, you know, Paul, they got a check there from Paul Wayne, or, you know, Jason Lee, a skateboarder or something like that, comes in, money order, you know, that way I'm going to roll. I don't put my name on a lot of stuff. I'm not looking for recognition with it. I just think it's an important thing to, you know, PJAC and USARK, and it's important to support those people. The Calvary group is another big one for exotic animal people, even reptile people, and they have lawyers and stuff that are lobbying up now. I send them money every year to, you know, to help with that. And yeah, man, we just gotta grab this shit by the horns, you know?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the day's gonna come, we're gonna let our guard down, because the reality is we're gonna have to win this fight 100 times. Like, every 5 years, It's gonna come up again, and the fight's gonna start over, and we're gonna throw a bunch of money in, and inevitably it's never gonna end. You know, I really love what you're saying too about, you know, just an exotic community altogether, because even like what is it? A petition's going around right now for the Big Cat Safety Act, and it's like reptile people should be signing that right now. Anyone who owns a pet, like you said, should be signing that thing. Whether you support someone owning a tiger, which again, maybe we shouldn't support the average Joe owning a tiger, but
right,
you know,
right. And I agree. Like, I have my permits. I look at it like this. Do I think my neighbor should have a tiger in their backyard? No. But if you have 10 acres, you have all the permits, you have a double fence, you have an 8-foot fence, and you have a reason for it, then I feel like this is America. You should be able to do it. Do I feel like someone should just get a tiger and put it in a 10x10 Magnum kennel in their backyard to say I have a tiger? No, I don't think there's a need for that. And I guess some people get mad at that too, but you know, I just feel like if you're going to do it the right way. It's like, you know, I don't know. I still have a lot of crazy views about that kind of stuff. It's like the whole thing with like alligators and stuff too. People get alligators and then they're like, oh, after it outgrows a 6-foot trough, I don't know what I'm going to do with it, you know? And I just feel bad about that too. Where I'm like, if you want to have an alligator, you should be able to have an alligator, but you should have the right setup and put a lot more thought into it, not just a, you know, random reptile show by.
Yeah, I mean, you know what it's like to go to the Hamburg show, man. There's 12-year-old kids running around with alligators in their hands. Like, anybody can buy an alligator at the Hamburg show. Like, it's a horrible idea. You know, like you said, if you have the means, the resources, I know people who have them and they're puppy dog tame. I mean, I love watching Graziani's videos, but you know, not everyone's Graziani. You know, so
I still have my original alligator. I got my permit in 1998, 1996 in Buffalo, New York State permit. We named him Darth Gator. I'm a big closet Star Wars nerd. And Darth is now 8 feet, about 170 pounds, and I can carry him around like a poodle.
Nice.
He's,
Yeah.
dude,
That's
the best.
cool, man.
We have Brutus, we have Daisy May, and then I have Alan Edward Gator. So we got the four big ones, and then we have the 2 smaller ones that we use for shows. But besides the one I actually got for education, the other 5 were all rescues. Like some came from DEC up here, some came from somebody that dropped them off at SPCA, or someone gave me. They come to a festival I'm doing, they hand me a box. It's an alligator. I'm like, what? And next thing you know, we have another alligator. So yeah, that's kind of where we got most of those guys. But yeah, but we have a huge pond for them. They're outside in the summer. We have a big exhibit, thing for them. They come in the winter, and I just try to do the best of the best for my animals.
No, of course. And too, like talking about the fight, they're getting smart too, because in the beginning it was one big thing, like they went after everybody at once in every state at once, and now they're sneaking up in little states, like what's going on in Michigan right now, what just went down in Alabama that passed faster than any other bill they've tried passing in the past. Like I said, there's so many distractions right now with 2020 that this shit's just going on under our noses, and we're not acknowledging it. We're not.
Well, here's
we're not
what's scary, Dave, and here's what's really scary. That whole Tiger King show, I don't know if people know this, that was supposed to be about the reptile community.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They had a bunch of stuff from shows, and this is where people got to think. They're at these shows. I was at a Hamburg show about a year ago. I'm walking through the parking lot. I meet a guy there. I get all my bedding. I got all my frozen rats from the guy, Rick. And there's a guy standing there. He's got like 8 huge things of venomous snakes. And there's people there taping them. And the kid's like, yeah, I had ball pythons. Then I had some corn snakes. Then I got a boa. And then I got an Amazon tree boa to kind of learn what I wanted to do with venomous. And then, I felt secure enough to get these. And this guy's taping him. And I'm like, dude, you're killing the whole community right now. Like, you're standing in a parking lot with 30 venomous snakes and just to be like, want to be on TV. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And like, they had so much footage for that, because I know one of the guys that was in on that with somebody, like, and they were going after reptiles and deli cups and these people doing shit in parking lots. And like, I'm like, oh, dude, like they say we're our own worst enemy. It's like, it's kind of true, man. Like, they're, that they show like baboon viper in a deli cup. Now I know that's the norm and stuff, but to us, but to outsiders, they're like, dude, they just put a fucking top 10 venomous snake on the planet in a fucking fruit salad container. Like, and if you think of that outside of the reptile world, that's fucked up, dude. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh, do I put watermelon bells in here, or do I put a baboon viper? I don't know.
No, it's true, man. And we do make the compare. We do talk about this a lot, that that documentary was going a whole nother direction, and if that truck didn't pull up with that animal in the back to completely change the direction, who knows? But I will say this: that show was not popular because there was exotic animals. There were so many characters on that show. Don't get me wrong, we have some characters, but that same documentary could have went and came out, and no one could have watched it. Some people would have watched it. But it came down to the characters. But you are right. I mean, it could have been a black eye, but I still feel like the exotic keepers as a whole got a black eye when that came out. Fuck, man, it was the best documentary I've ever seen. I've never been so entertained. I fucking turned it on at 10 o'clock. Next thing you know, it's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm still watching. Like, I couldn't
I
fucking
did the
turn it
same
off,
thing.
man.
I did the same thing. Me and my wife. Then we watched it again the next 2 days. We watched it all over because I'm like, dude, I would say randomly. I walk in the kitchen to my wife, right? And I'd be like, guys, like, we just got a worker just got their arm ripped off by a tiger, and nothing to see here. Like, everyone in the gift shop's just like looking at him, and my kids would laugh, or I'd walk in like, I'm never gonna financially recover from this, like the one-liners. Like, that dude was a character, and I met him. He wanted me to do shows at his place, like, for a couple months during the summer months when I was like doing Fallon, like every 20 days going on the Tonight Show. He was calling us, wanting me to go down there and do shows. Then after I saw this, I'm like, dude, I said to my wife, I'm like, we would have been divorced. I would have been a meth head living in a shed, You know, like this is like crazy. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
wild, man.
No, and like I said, and personalities, and you talk about your personality being loud, but the reality is, loud gets people's attention. I've had a lot of stupid facial hairs. This mustache might be the most retarded thing I've ever done for my face, but you know what? You ain't gonna
I love
fucking
it.
forget me.
I
Like
love
this
it.
is it. This is
I
a
love
fucking calling card. But God, man, there was somewhere else I wanted to go with that. I fucking lost train of thought. You know what, Ryan? You've been stalking the shit out of them, man. What do you got on the tip of your tongue right now?
Dude, I want to know what it's like to get into the celebrity side of animal presenting, because I just took a really quick trip through your timeline here, and the stuff that I'm seeing is how does this happen?
What, dude? I've just always been people that really know me, and don't haters gonna hate, people are gonna judge. It's funny. I hear stories. People are like, "Oh, his parents are loaded. He's just a rich kid." Blah blah blah. Bullshit, dude. I grew up normal, middle class. I just busted my ass for everything I had, and my parents kept me always stay humble, always remember where you came from. So we'd go on these shows, and I'd meet these people, and they're doing the same shit at every talk show, talking to the same people, sitting in the green room. And I'm not gonna lie, dude. You get there at 11 o'clock. And then you do your dress rehearsal, and then you just sit around all day. And like Fallon would tape at 5:30, 6 o'clock. So for these celebrity people, they come in and then you just sit around. So they would come and knock on the door next door, and they'd be like, "Hey, Mike Tyson's here. He would like to see your animals." I'm like, "Bring them in!" What the fuck? Yeah. So we're hanging out, and I remember the best one of them. I got a lot of funny stories, but one story when I did Fallon was we went up the night before because there was a snowstorm. I'm watching Monday Night Football. We were on Fallon on Tuesday, and Troy Polamalu was there from the Steelers. And me and my brother were watching him fucking slaughter people. And I was like, dude, this dude is insane. Well, we get to the show. We wouldn't see what guests were on, or I would ask because I would want us to be surprised, just whatever. And he knocks on my door, and my brother goes, "Who is it?" I open up the door. Troy Polamalu standing there. There's a little dude. His hair is just everywhere. He's like, "Hi, Jeff. I'm Troy." I'm like, "Mr. Polamalu, how are you, sir?" And I shook his hand. I'm like, "Holy shit, man! I can't believe you're knocking on my door." He goes, wow. He goes, "You're a lot." What did he say to me? He goes, "You're a lot quieter than you are when we watch you on the night show. I'm a big fan." I said, "Thank you, sir." I said, "Not for nothing, but you're very calm because we watched you straight up murder people last night on the field like that." And he starts laughing, and then he comes over and he's talking. He's telling us how he's supposed to play for the Buffalo Bills, but he wasn't going to come to the Buffalo Bills because his wife, they're Samoan, and he's like, "You have a lot of ghost ships." And Dave, by the Peace Bridge, there's a ship, and then there's that other ship kind of in Lake Erie. And he's like, "My religion in that I couldn't come there. There's too many ghost ships." And me and my brother were like, "Whoa, this is insane," And then probably the highlight of highlights, I met a lot of cool people, but doing this, they just want to come and see the animals and hang out and be treated like a normal person. And I would just BS with them. And next thing you know, they're like, "Hey, if you're ever in LA, call me," or they give me a number. I'm like, this is weird. But we got a call to do Saturday Night Live. You could Google it. It was called Bathroom Cobra. And we shot it in New York City. And we got there, and it's freaking Vince Vaughn. And I walk in, and it's me. I had the two guys with me. We had the box inside the box, all the New York City regs. We got the freaking cobra, and I brought an albino rattlesnake, an albino monocle cobra. And we were walking up the stairs, and Vince Vaughn's like hanging out in a chair like this. Now, he's been an idol of mine. I love him. Every movie he does, all the way back from Swingers, So I'm like, this is going to be freaking killer, But I never want to be fanboyish. I just want to be cool, and if it happens, it happens, Like you hang out or you talk to him or whatever, and just be cool. And I'm walking up the stairs, and he's like, hello to the guys. He goes, "Oh, the snake eyes. Whoa, look at that hook. Whoa." My wife walks by and goes, "And hello to you." And I look at him, and I'm like, I wanted to kick that chair, and break the leg and have him fall. And in my mind, I'm like, what a douche. Like, oh, dude, and he goes, "What's up, bro?" I'm like, "What's up, bro?" And I walk and I'm like, just the way he did it, I'm like, oh, God, please, no. So next thing you know, we're shooting this thing, and he goes, "All right." I stunt doubled for him in that. anytime you see with the Cobra and all that was me, and he was there. And then they paid like $15,000 for a piece of glass, optical lens to come, so he could be on the floor and I'm behind it with the Cobra, right? So we're sitting there, and he's like, I pop this box open, and I walk in, and he's just like he's in the movies. And he goes, "What's your name, man?" I said, "I'm Jeff." He goes, "Nice to meet you." He goes, "I'm Vince Vaughn." And I go, I know that, sir. And I shook his hand. He goes, "No, please call me Vince Vaughn." He goes, "And your new name is the Cobra Kid." I said, "Thank you very much." And now your new name, I'll say right back, I'm like, is Double V. And he just shook his head. He's like, "I like you. I like where we're going with this. I like you. I feel like chemistry." And I'm like, "Fuck, this guy's just like the movies." So he goes, "What do you got in the box, kid? What do you got in the box? A shotgun?" Because I got like a shotgun case. Shout out to Midwest Tongs, my boy Dana. He always hooks me up strong with all the stuff I need for all the hooks and tongs and shirts and hats. And they're awesome. Midwest Tongs, best on the planet. Sorry, that's my cheap plug there. But the best. I open up the shotgun case, and I bring out the tongs and hooks. And Vince Vaughn's just like movies. Goes, "Oh, whoa," because Saturday Night Live's a bunch of like college hipster kids that like run it. It's like weird, but they're all there, and Vince Vaughn's like, "Whoa, he's not fucking around. This guy's not fucking around. Look at the Cobra Kid's not fucking around. Look at these hooks. Look at these grabbers. He's grabbing all this stuff." I'm like, "Dude, you can't be grabbing." "Oh, I'm sorry. I won't touch your stuff. I won't touch stuff." I get it. So we start shooting this thing, and they're like, "Wait, we need to do that again." I'm like, "Dude, I got a 6-foot fucking monocle Cobra, and they want to keep me doing takes." So Vince looks at me, and he goes, "Look at me. When I say go, roll the fucking tape," right? I'm like, "My man." He goes like this. He goes, "We're going to get this done one way or another. We're not going to fucking sit here and dance all day." And I get this thing up. They shoot the whole thing. Awesome, right? So all of a sudden, I hear these people telling my wife to like move. She came along, and they're like, "Move, move, move." He walks out. Vince Vaughn, he looks, and he goes, Hey, that's a Cobra Kid's wife. No one puts a Cobra Kid's wife in the corner. Cobra Kid's wife in the corner. Come over here. So they're in there. I go do my shoot. I come walking back, and my wife's laughing, and he's laughing. I'm like, "What the fuck is going on in here?" Right? I'm like, 1 minute he's cool, and I'm like, so he's like hanging down, and we're sitting there, and he goes, "Man," and I'm thinking, in my mind, thinking, I need a picture with this dude, but I don't want to be a cheese ball. So we're sitting there, and I'm like, "Hey," he goes, "Dude, I'm telling you, that was incredible. That was incredible. Balls. You got street cred for weeks, man. That Cobra, street cred for weeks." I said, "Listen, I know right now you're thinking in your mind, I need to get a picture with the best Cobra handler in the world." But you're like, "No, should I do it?" You're nervous. I get it. I feel it. So you know what? I said, I'm feeling it right now. So bring it in, big dog. I said, let's get a picture to cement this memory. Go down in the books of street cred. He goes, "I like where we're going with this. I feel you, Cobra Kid. I feel you." And he comes over, and we take a picture, and my wife's eyes light up. His publicist earlier is like, "Don't talk to him. Don't ask him for pictures." Coolest fucking dude ever. My wife like looks at me like, "Holy shit, I got to do this," because all her friends are going to be like, "There's no way," And he goes, and I said, "I got to ask you another favor." He goes, "One with the pretty lady?" I said, "That would be, I would love it if you could do that for me." She gets, and she's like, "What are you kidding? I would love it." So she gets up, and they take a picture, and then she puts it on, Facebook and that, and everybody's just like, "Where the hell are you? What's going on? Why is Jeff and you with Vince Vaughn in a tiny dressing room?" Like, so it was just cool, man. But after he left, he came up, and he's like, "God bless you. I hope all good things happen to you. You guys are great people." And we hung out with him in this dressing room for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Just a straight up awesome dude. And that's funny because we had the same pajamas. So he took his clothes off, changed in the bathroom, came out, put them down. He leaves. My wife's like, "Go look at what jeans he has." I'm not touching his jeans. She's like, "Go look at his jeans." I'm like, "I see it right here. It says Levi's." She goes, "Oh, I love him." I go, "What do you mean?" She goes, "It says right here, he's worth like 61 million and he's wearing Levi's. He's good people." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess if wearing Levi's means you're good people, So we were just like goofing around, but yeah, it was cool, man. It was just nice to meet somebody that you're always into the movies and stuff, and then you're hanging out with them and BSing, and yeah, it was awesome. But yeah, I just always just been myself. The people just want to see animals. Everybody loves animals, and if you're on a set and you're like, "There's someone here with animals," we met everyone from like freaking Ludacris to Nick Lachey to Eminem, Brock Lesnar, the little Stevie from The Sopranos, Josh Brolin. That was awesome, dude. He's freaking incredible. Josh, I was always a big fan of him too. And he came over and knocked on my room, and we were talking, and I go, dude, Thrashing, Goonies, and he's just like shaking his head like this. He goes, Thrashing and Goonies? How did you even remember that? I'm like, dude, I grew up with your movies, man. And like, we were just, I was giving one-liners, and he's like, he was a really freaking awesome dude. He was really cool too. But yeah, it's just been fun, man. I've been blessed just to meet a lot of people, just because being able to do what I love and, try and educate some of these people. They're not just playing with animals, but they're in the dressing room. You're talking to them, and they're like, where are these found? What do they do in the wild? What do they, you're talking to them about stuff. And then I feel like when I'm talking to these people, not only is it cool, but you're also making them think about stuff. Then they're going to want to tell people about it. Then they're going to want to tell people about it. They're going to want to Google search lemurs or, Arctic fox or, spider monkeys. And it's cool. It's just, I love it, man. It's just any way you can just get people talking about animals. My family makes fun of me because they're like, we don't have to worry about Jeff watching porn. Like, I'll be sitting somewhere on my phone, and my brother always makes a joke. He's like, bearded dragons. Anytime they come over, like my phone, you go on any of my Instagram stuff, any of that, you're like, who does he follow? Zoo, reptile breeder, zoo. It's just like, I'm obsessed, man. I'm obsessed. I just love it,
No, for sure, man. And like you said, you take animals out of homes, and people are going to stop caring about the ones in the wild. So, educating is one of the best things anybody can do. And, this happens if you're in this hobby and you have somebody who's not in the hobby and you tell them what you do, what do they say? Oh, shit, Burmese pythons are going to be in Ohio someday. And it's like, no, man, we're not going to say it's not a problem, but the reality is it's not what it really is. It's blown out of proportion. They're trying to scare people. I mean, fuck, you should be worried about wild boars, man. Those things are going to be all the way up into Canada before you know it.
I know. You got to worry about tegus. They're tailgating in Pittsburgh right now. I mean, they're working their way right through. They're coming in. Troops of them. Troops.
But, yeah, fuck, man. Yeah, like I said, and, shit, man, the celebrity aspect, I mean, who doesn't ever want to mingle with celebrities? I mean, that's a dream. I mean, anytime I would go to a hockey game or a football game as a little kid and see a football player, like, that's just such a good feeling. And you got to nerd out a little bit. It's almost impossible not to. If you don't nerd out, you're a fucking asshole and you're hiding it. Like, nerd out, buddy.
Yeah. It's cool. I've done, like, a lot of the Bills players and Sabres players, kids parties and stuff. And, I've done stuff for some of the adults, different players, stuff like that. And it's just cool, man, to see like they really get into animals. They're just that's what when you see them, like when you see these like celebrities and people and they're like giddy like a little kid, that's at the zoo for the first time. It's a cool feeling, like to see these people light up, just like with animals. It's cool, man. I just love it. Anything I can do to turn people on to animals, get people to love animals,
Yeah. So not to give up your whole business plan or anything moving forward, but when something goes wrong in life, and I say this all the time in this hobby, it's an adapt or die moment. What are you doing, bud? Are you doing anything virtual reality? Are you doing any parties that way? Any school stuff? Like, what are you going to do if this keeps on going on?
Well, we started doing a lot of Zoom parties. We started doing a lot of stuff on Zoom, which is cool. I got on Cameo, which is insane because my manager was like, yo, you should get on Cameo. They reached out. I go, what's that? And they're like, people like you give them shout out. I'm like, dude, I'm some dude from Buffalo that plays with animals. They're like, yeah, but people see you on TV late night. They want you to call them up and, talk to them, have an animal. So I'm like, yeah, why not? So I started doing tons of like cameos. And the craziest one ever, like $30 a pop or whatever. And Cameo takes a chunk or whatever. And like I did some like, cause I feel bad. People are paying money. So I'm like, do a 3-minute video. And Cameo was like, no. Keep it about a minute long, and I'm like, I just want to keep talking to people, So they open their phone and just keep laughing. The coolest one I did though was for a guy. I said to my wife, I'm like, what do I do? He had me break up his engagement with his fiance.
Oh wow.
With a snake. And I said to my wife, it's like 5 days to do it. And you got to do it. I'm like, do I do it? So I shot it with this background here, and I got this snake around me, and I'm like, hey, Paula, word on the street is you're a cold-hearted snake. And Jimmy said the wedding's off, and he hopes you have fun with your neighbor. And he really wanted me to have a big rat sitting next to me because he thinks you're a dirty rat, but I don't like rats. So I have something that eats rats. It's a snake. I just kind of went on, and I'm like, anyway, the wedding's off. Good luck with COVID. Have a good one. He ended up tipping me like $50 on top of it. I'm like, dude,
That's
Yeah,
nuts.
I'll do whatever it takes, man. You know, I'll do whatever it takes. Like I said, my animals will not want for anything. I'm not going down without a fight. You can knock me down, I'll still be swinging. I guess that's my old hardcore mentality in me. Like, you're not gonna take me out, and I'm gonna get through this. And what I started to do was, it was pretty wild, man. Like, what I mean by a weirdo is, like, I have a lot of, like, I'm not like tooting my own horn type thing, but I have a lot of really nice stuff that I have because I wanted, like a Gurnia, and Cunningham, like Cunninghams and Gidgee skinks, Depressa, all these red Ackies and Kimberleys and green tree monitors that I breed, and all this stuff. And like forever, I was never like selling it. I was like, I don't want to put it on Facebook. Like, I don't want to, like, I don't want to do that. And I had some red Ackies hatch out. I put them up on Facebook. Guy contacts me. He's like, what do you want from them? They're the nicest ones I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't know, $500 a piece. He's like, I'll take them all right now. And I'm like, what? He's like, you have Venmo? I'll Venmo you right now, $2,500. How much is shipping? I'm like, probably $60. He's like, all right, 25, 60, boom. I'm like, this is insane. Like, I always wholesale stuff. I just don't want to deal with it. So, like, we have hedgehogs that are breeding and chinchillas and redfoot tortoises hatching out and all kinds. I breed Wolmas and Blackheads and all the spotted and children's and anthill and
that's cool.
Granite
talk about that.
Yeah, I could go on and on. Like, I just like a closet crazy reptile dude that people would never know. But like knobtail geckos and fat tail geckos and different types of leopard geckos, and I just love it all, and albino tegus that we're working with. We just hatched out a couple of green tree monitors.
We got to get up there for a tour, man.
Dude, it's insane. I just got some radiated tortoises because I have my CBW permits to bring them in from out of state. So I have some radiated tortoises. I got some giant sulcatas. One of them I bought at a fair. I was in Syracuse at a fair, and they had this giant sulcata tortoise in like one of those oddities things. And the guy's like had it on blacktop with a bike rack around it. And I'm like, that's a fucking dinosaur, dude. It should not be sitting here on blacktop with nothing to eat. I'm like, what do you want for that? He's like, you won't be able to afford it. I'm like, I don't give a shit what you think I can afford. What do you want for that? He's like, he goes, what are you going to pay me for it? I said, just name a price. And he goes, $1,000. I reached into my pocket. Not like I walk around with $1,000 on me, but we were going to the fair. I think I met someone there that day and sold some snakes or something at the fair. That's why we were up there. I don't know what it was. But I pulled out $1,000 and I handed it to him. And he like looked at me and shrugged. And me and my buddy picked this freaking tortoise up and walked out of the fair with him. And people are like, what the hell's going on? And I swear to Christ, that thing looked at me for a second, popped his head out, and smiled. It was like, thank you, God. And I say he's one of the biggest sulcata tortoises I've ever seen. One of those giant, like, Sudans that came in years ago, the monsters. And we bring him to the fair every year. His head's bigger than both my hands together. And we have people, they pay a couple bucks and they can feed him carrots and stuff. And this one guy's like, dude, thank you for this opportunity. Like, I feel like I'm feeding a living dinosaur, I'm like, cool, right? And I had these little tong things to feed. He's like, dude, this thing is awesome. And then I tell the story. I'm like, dude, I rescued him out of a fair. Like, I do a fair. Mine are outside on grass with a nice little fence around them. We have the hut for them to go in at night and heat lamps. This was like on blacktop. There's some oddities thing that pissed me off. So we got the sulcata from there. So I have a couple big sulcatas, and I have a shingleback skink.
Nice.
Which is like my freaking pride and joy. I breed Shinosaurus. Yeah, dude. I have almost a little bit of everything. Try not to get too like crazy, because at times I fall in love with stuff, and I'm like, all right, tree monitors. I bred green trees. I'm like, now I need yellows and blacks and blues, and then I'm like, all right, pump the brakes. Work with the greens. Enjoy the greens. Maybe if you get a chance to get some blacks, then work with the blacks, but don't, start going crazy, because I'm like a closet reptile junkie on top of everything too.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is addicting, man, and especially when you first get in it, you want fucking everything, and if you have the money, you probably go out and get fucking everything.
Dude, over the years, I think I pretty much did.
Yeah, well, I believe it. little suggestion for you. This is a business idea, not a good one. Just a little tweak in what you're already doing. So when you do these, one big thing about your thing is, taking animals and, we've taken that off the table now. These Zoom things are just you talking about and showing stuff. You should really put together almost like a little package that goes there. Talk to a guy like me. I'll start sending you 1,000 snake sheds a month, and I'll send you 1,000 ball python eggs. Once the ball pythons are out, make these little things. Let the kids start playing with that kind of stuff as you're talking about animals. Like, that's the whole thing about what you're doing.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, when you lose the hands-on experience, like it takes away. You can talk to kids, but their attention spans are shit. So you got to get something in their hands, man. Maybe give us some venomous guys. Get some like diamond rattlesnake fucking sheds. Like just do something neat. Like
the rattles. And yeah, that's awesome. That's a great idea. That's what I was hoping more for. If we start doing a lot more of the schools and things like that are starting to reach out with Zoom, because I think a lot of schools are holding out thinking that kids would be back in January. We'd be back to doing shows in March and April and May. And I think it's going to turn into more Zoom stuff like that, where that'd be cool though. That's a great idea, man. Get some eggs, and stuff like that and send that to the schools. They would freak out over that,
Yeah, man, I'll be your supplier for fun. I'll have all the employees start putting the sheds to the side. You do whatever the fuck you want when they end up where they're at. And like I said,
that's awesome.
Stuff you can do.
I appreciate it, Dave.
Oh, of course. Hey, Ben, you haven't raised your hand this episode. What do you got going on over there? Anything?
Yeah, man, I always got tons of stuff going on. There's a couple of different directions. How about this direction? So you love animals, right? You're up in New York and you've been around a lot of different places. Can you tell us some cool herping stories? So I'm sure you're out like looking for stuff out in the world, like not just, going to pet shops. So tell us a couple of good herping stories.
I'll tell you a good herping story. I was doing a show out near the Pennsylvania line, and a guy says to me, I was doing a show, and then we were staying over at my sister's cabin, and then the next day I was doing a show. It was a big festival that was like on the New York PA line, and it was like a wildlife Earth Festival, and they had me come out to do shows. So I did the show, and then a guy was talking to me, like not far from here, there's this hill, and he gave me names, and I could give stuff out for poaching purposes or whatever. But he's like, there's timber rattlesnakes there, and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah. He goes, you go here, and he like wrote this whole map out to me. So I went back to my sister's, and I had an employee at the time drive my animals home and then bring them back up for me. So I had no animals with me, but I had a snake hook, and I'm walking down this road by myself into where this place was, and he's like, you'll see this big rusted car, make a left there. When you see the rusted car. So then part of me, because I'm a little fucking paranoid, I'm like, I'm going to get there. This dude's going to like cut my skin off and be like, put the lotion in the basket, and like, I'm going to be living in a barn, like lowering me down with hooks in my back and like eating me. But something about it, this dude was just really into this stuff, So I'm like, I'm going to go check this out. So I go in there, all this slate rock and stuff. And I'm walking through the woods, and he's like, right when you get through this passing, we call it Rattlesnake Hill. I'm like, okay. He goes, there's timbers everywhere. I'm like, I would love to see a timber in the wild. But every time I talk to people about it, that's been to places with timbers in the wild, they never want to share the spot. They never want to, dude, true story. I start walking. I'm walking up. I'm like, I don't see no freaking snakes here. And then I'm like looking around. I'm like, this is what, and I'm going to flip rocks and stuff with a snake hook. I had a snake hook with me, and I'm flipping these rocks, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden, right between my legs, and I'm like, oh shit. And this thing's probably 6 feet long. 3 feet they can strike out. Even if they're 6 feet, they got half the body length. And I have timbers myself. I have my permits for all. I have timbers and easterns and sidewinders and stuff. And I'm standing over them, and this thing's just rattling between my legs. I'm like, really? This is how I'm going to go out? This is how I'm going to go out? So I'm like, I look down like this, and I hook the thing gently, and I lift him up, and I'm like trying to force the head this way, and I'm going like this, and I go like this, and I put him down, and I'm like, oh man, oh my God, bless myself after that. I'm like, I've never seen a timber in the wild, and I nearly pissed my pants because there's one right between my legs. Well, next thing you know, I don't know what it is about herping, but all of a sudden, boom, I start locking on them. I'm like, there's one there, a black one. There's a tan one. There's a black one. And the sun was coming through the trees at the right time, so they're trying to warm up a little bit. All of a sudden, this guy goes, don't touch another one. And the hair on the back of my neck stands up, and I kind of look around. there's nobody there, dude. I'm looking around, and I take my hook to touch another one. He goes, if you want to touch another one, we're going to have you arrested, and then you can do this for wildlife, this, and this. I turn around again. A fucking bush is waving at me. I'm like, holy shit. It was an environmental conservation officer from Pennsylvania hiding out there because these guys were coming there and killing rattlesnakes because there's all these farmers around because they were afraid these rattlesnakes were going to kill their cows. And they were tracking this den site net for years, I guess. And he thought he followed me back to my car. He made sure I didn't have like snake hook bags and boxes and stuff with me, which I had nothing of. I said, dude, I told him who I am and what I do. And I'm like, I just want to see in the wild, man. I just love to see things in the wild. If they could be in the wild, I'd love to see them in the wild. That's why I'm here. He goes, oh, you weren't going to take them? You weren't going to sell them? You weren't going to? I'm like, come back to my car. He goes, that's where we're going. I said, I have my permits with me. I carry them everywhere and what my wife calls my man purse. And inside there, I'm like, here's my permits in New York State, license to possess and collect. He goes, so you're going to take them out of the wild? I said, no, I have 2 of them ready. And they're on an endangered threat species permit too. I have a male and female. I have the 2. I don't need any more. I was just coming to see them in the wild. He's like, don't tell your friends. Don't come back. You know, this is for the betterment of the species, the whole 9 yards. And I was like, yeah, I get it, man. Sorry, you know. But this dude who's like I guess I was on the PA, it was in PA, I guess, but it was like New York border. But it was a PA game officer that was like, I got scared. The scariest part is when you hear the guy's voice and there's no human beings there. And I'm like, then I'm already thinking about the guy that gave me the map to get there. And I'm like, this dude's going to like cook me or something. Or like, you know, I mean, put my body parts in the fridge. And then this bush waves. And I'm not kidding you because I'm not too proud to say it. I got back to my car. My body was going, like the blood was going, adrenaline was going. Afterward, I'm like, the fuck? I'm like, why is my pants warm down here? I pissed myself. Straight up pissed my pants. I'm not too proud to admit it. Dude, people say what they want. Get in that position when a goddamn bush is talking to you and there's venomous snakes over there and the dude waves to you and then this guy starts moving and I'm like, here comes another guy from over here and the other backup officer and they're obviously waiting to bust somebody. But I'm like, dude, I got so nervous. I got back to the car. I'm like, yeah, I pissed myself. Not a full piss, like right through your pants, but just like through the boxer shorts, you know? And I'm like, that sucked, man. That like really, really, really sucked. But
that's probably the best herping story so far on Herp House Rock.
Yeah, right.
Dude, I'll give you another one too. I love, you know, I know Dave loves fishing and stuff, and I don't get too crazy, but my son's 10, Jungle Joey. You know, I love him to death. He's a big reptile dude too. He came to Tinley with me, and next thing you know, we're running around Tinley and buying corn snakes and stuff that we don't need because he needs it. And we went fishing recently with my 4 nephews, and they're like, Uncle Jeff, Uncle Jeff. You know, they're always, to my sister's kids, they're always like, Uncle Jeff's the coolest. They call me Uncle Jeff, the fun uncle. They're like, he's crazy, you know, and we go fishing. We're in Clarence, New York, Clarence Town Park, and there's just a lot of like sunfish in there, some smallmouth bass, you know. So I'm just throwing a line out with them, and all of a sudden my nephew's like, Uncle Jeff, there's a snapping turtle right there, size of a garbage can lid, right? So I go over, I lean down, I just pull this thing, boom, pull it right out of the pond. I took a picture on Instagram, and I'm like, you went fishing, huh? Cool story, bro, or something like that. And then all these people are bashing me. They're like, you didn't touch a snapping turtle. You're not even dirty. And all my nephews are like, that was awesome. You didn't even get wet. You didn't even get muddy. This thing's pissing. I'm holding him side. You know, like got him up by the back of the shell, got him up by his tail, and I'm holding underneath. This thing was a monster. Just to see that in the wild. And then my nephews are looking at it. They're like, that thing's prehistoric. It's so cool. And I was just getting them like so into it, you know? But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it is fun too, man. Just seeing a snapping turtle in the wild, you know, there's nothing like that. And pulling that sucker right out of the pond. And then when I reached in to grab him, the scary part was I was like, I grabbed him at the mid part of the shell, and I was like, oh shit. I probably should have checked to see which end the head was at, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I didn't know where I was grabbing, but I was so amped up. And my nephew and my son's there. I'm like, I'm pulling it. And then, you know, a couple hours later, my son's like, yeah, I got you topped. I caught 4 turtles. I'm like, dude, you got little painted turtles. He's like, they're faster. I'm like, touche, you got me. You did get me. They're faster. And he's luring them in with the worm above the water, and they're coming up. He gets them all the way to shore, and he snags them, and he's like, I got it. I got another one. I'm like, damn, dude. You know, all the years that I wanted to catch one out of the wild like that, you know, I got the snapper, and, you know, he's bringing in 4 to 6 paintings every time we go to Clarence Town Park fishing, you know? So yeah, that was cool. I would love to go somewhere else, like Costa Rica or somewhere and see things like that, like the eyelash in the wild and things, but it's just so hard because I just have so many animals here that I'm paranoid. I'm a paranoid person. Dave knows, you can feel me. Dave can feel me with that. And because I listen to the podcast, Dave talks about the paranoia. And I'm just afraid, like, I'll be in Mexico or something, and I won't be able to get home. And I got all these animals here, and my wife will be calling me, and I won't be able to get home. And she's like, you know, who's going to feed the king cobra? You know, who's feeding the mountain lions? She helps me out a lot, but it's like, I got to be somewhere where I can rent a car and drive home if I have to, you know? So it's you know, I got a lot of friends. I want to go down to Texas. I want to try to make one of those like Conroe shows and go down there and a couple guys down there go herping. And I want to do some road cruising. I'm obsessed with rattlesnakes. And I love to see them in the wild. Just grab them. I'll tell you another funny herping story. We were at Disney. We're big Disney people. My kids and my wife. And we go with the mother and father-in-law. And we were at one of the Disney resorts. And all these people are coming out in the mornings about noon. All these people are walking back, and it's a big, you know, Disney resort. And there's probably about a 5-foot male Eastern Diamondback, like right in the middle of the walkway, just rattling away. And all these people are like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Dude, someone's gonna get hurt." You know what I mean? So a kid's gonna get hurt. So I take a branch, Steve Irwin style, dude, crack a branch off a tree, hook this thing up underneath, and you hear people talking. It's funny because my wife, you know, and my father-in-law was there listening, and people were like, "This dude's gonna die. What the hell's wrong with him?" You know? And I hooked this thing up. I got him by the tail and I grabbed the rattle and I hook him up and I take him over to where all this brush is. Take him back over there. I put him down, let him go. I had like a standing ovation. All these people were clapping. This little lady's trying to hand me money. You know, I'm like, I'm good. You know, and someone came up to me afterward from Disney and they're like, "Hey, we want to give your family like unlimited fast passes for what you did. You know, someone could have really got hurt.
Wow.
You have people on the grounds that take care of this stuff, but like for you to do that," and they're like, "You know, do you handle snakes?" I'm like, "No, man. At home, all I have is goldfish. I just watch people on TV do it. Thought I could do it." You know, they're like, the 3 people from Disney are like,
That's hilarious.
Like, I watch a lot of Cock Hunter. You know, they're like, so I go, "No, really." I said, "This is what I do for a living and stuff like that." And I just want people to be safe and the snake and not his head chopped off by some crazy dad from Missouri that is, you know, trying to save the day or whatever. Nothing against Missouri, just saying.
Yeah, damn,
and,
Missouri,
you know,
out of all the states you had to say.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. That's right. I forgot, Dave. I forgot. I kept thinking Buffalo. You know, like some guy from, you know, he comes in and that's what we do. And back home, we just cut their head off, you know. So I was like, I got to get the snake out of here. Got to help these people. So that was the best Disney ever because any ride we wanted to go on, we just walked up there like, all the Star Wars stuff,
Nice.
front of the line, just it was awesome.
Nice.
That was cool, man. So that was, you know, those are kind of the extent of my herping stories. I love to go road cruising though, Texas and Arizona or New Mexico or whatever. Just I would love to do that. California, just rattlesnakes in the wild. I'd be like the biggest 6-year-old. Just like lose my mind, you know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, like I said, when life gets back in order and you start figuring out where you're going, you just let me know because, like, when I do a show, before I go there, I'm always talking to locals that I know that are breeders. I'm trying to find any herping spot. You know, even Arlington.
That would be awesome,
Ryan
Dave.
McVay put us on. Ryan McVay put me on a copperhead spot right north of the Arlington show. We went out there. We found like 9 copperheads, and they were all fucking the most beautiful ones you've ever seen.
I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be so incredible.
No, like I said, I'm all about it. Let's
See,
get back to normal.
Yeah, see, and I started up just before this hit, like this Corona stuff hit the fan. I started up Jeff the Animal Guy YouTube channel, and I have a friend of mine who's like a videographer doing all the work, and we did like a little thing about me feeding animals at my building, and then we did a little thing with these baby goats I got, and the one went viral with the goats running down the hallway. The little clip I put out, Ellen Show, and all these people start posting it just with the way the goats were dancing down the hallway. But then COVID hit, and it was hard because I couldn't have people here and people around the animals and the monkeys, and you didn't know who was spreading it and who had what or what to do. But the Jeff the Animal Guy YouTube channel, we're really going to push it. And then I'm going to try, when this all passes, start to do a little bit of traveling and get stuff like that on film, you know, different people's collections, different zoos, road crews, and things like that. Like it should, you know, I think it would be pretty awesome, and you know, keep that going,
That'd be
push
cool,
that,
man.
and you know, have some fun with that. Just put some fun stuff
You
out
definitely
there.
have the content. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know anything about that, and the guy that shot it, he's like, dude, we got 1,100 subscribers in a week. He's like, the hardest thing is to hit over 1,000 subscribers. And I'm like, really? Like, I don't know anything about that. I'm like, I just want to make fun videos and have fun and give people stuff to watch and, you know, a day in the life of and following me around and just fun stuff. You know, I just want to make fun videos, something to give people something to do, you know?
Yeah,
we've been
no, for
working
sure.
this channel for a year and we only got 400 subs. So
Yeah. We're not very good at what we do.
Nah, hey, listen, man, I'll push it. I'll push it on all my platforms. Anything I can do. One of my favorite podcasts, man. You guys are great. I've listened to them all a couple times over. Ron St. Pierre, he's a freaking great dude.
Yeah,
he was next to me at
Ron's
Tinley.
awesome.
He was next to me at Tinley. And dude, that's one of those dudes I geeked out over when I was a kid. Old Viberian magazine. I'm like, dude, he bred black throat monitors. Dude, he bred blue tegus, albinos, like blood boas. Like, you read these Viberian magazines, and he's sitting next to me at the Tinley show, and I like look, and his girlfriend sells bearded dragons, and I like look again. I'm like, that's not freaking Ron St. Pierre. I look again, and on his arm, he's got a tattoo that says, "The coin has a say," and that's a song title from Every Time I Die, who's a friend of mine's band from Buffalo. I was in their videos with some animals, and they're hardcore scream metal band. And I looked at him and I go, "Hey, Every Time I Die," and his whole face lit up, and he goes, "Fuck yeah, I do," like that, you know. I go, "Anyone gets a tattoo on their arm?" I said, "I'm Jeff Musial," you know, and he was Ron St. Pierre. I'm like, "No fucking way!" Like, I geeked out, man. I'm just like, you know, in my mind, that's just so cool. And then I'm like, he goes, "Why, you know those guys?" I'm like, "They're good friends of mine." And then he like geeked out. He's like, "No fucking way," you know. And it was just cool because then I text Keith Buckley, the lead singer, and I took a picture of Ron's arm, sent it to him. And then he texts us back. He's like, "No fucking way." So he's like, "That's cool, man." I'm like a reptile icon has your song title written on their tattooed on his arm, you know. And then after that, you know, I hit it off. We start talking around. He's like, "Anything you need, animal-wise, or need to know anything, hit me up." So I text him here and there. Every Time I Die, just dropped a couple singles. So I texted him the other day. I'm like, "Yo," and I sent him a picture. He's like, "Downloaded it last night at midnight." He's a cool freaking dude, man. So it's cool. You know, I gotta get down there. He's like, "You're down in Florida, come see my place. I would love to, you know, do that and you know, see his stuff." But yeah, that was cool, man, to be at Tinley and geek out with them. Nathan Hall and the Gecko Conference, you know, I was messing with him, goofing around with those guys, and just meeting a lot of different people there and telling some funny stories, and you know, waiting in line to get in on Sunday mornings, me and my son, and just telling them funny stories about stuff. And Nathan's a good dude, man. And he's like, "Tell him this funny story. Tell him the story about Fallon." Or tell him. I'm like, "Dude, I don't want to be. We're waiting in line to get in for a show. I don't want to be telling him stories, you know." So my son's like, "Tell him the monkey story. Tell him the monkey story." I think it was Justin Julander was there, and Justin Julander, one of the Justin.
Yeah, that's the name of the industry.
Right? Yeah,
yeah, it's Julander.
He was standing there, and he's like, "What?" And so I'm telling the story, and Nate's like, "Isn't that a good story? That's a good story." And they're all laughing. They're like, "Dude, where were you last night? We just want to hang out and tell funny stories. You got stories for days." And it was just cool, man, to meet a lot of different people in the industry because I've been doing this a long time. But like I said, I feel like this COVID thing really changed me as a person, and I want to like enjoy life more and step out of that my own shadow that I like hide behind to be like, you know, there's a lot of cool people in the industry that like I'd see and just kind of walk by, and I think people would take it as like, "Oh, he thinks he's too good for people or this or that." But I was just so weird that it really felt good to be at Tinley and like see these people and meet these people and talk to people, and it's cool, man, to be part of the industry and you know, pushing to be even more part of the industry with a lot of stuff I breed and do the Tinleys and maybe Arlingtons and some stuff like that. You know, it's cool. It's a great industry, and I just love it. I just love this hobby.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best personalities, and you know, and I've admitted it before, you know, a lot of the guests I bring on here is because I've geeked out and I've obsessed over them, and the opportunity to actually sit down and talk with them in a setting like this is exciting as fuck. And, you know, the Ron St. Pierre one, he was fucking informative. He was a great guy. He kept in contact afterwards. Like, couldn't have been happier. It was a great long format podcast. Like, what a great fucking guy, man.
Yeah, he's
we bring
awesome.
him up a lot.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was great. I love the one you guys did with Mike's monitors. That was great too. It was cool to hear that, dude. I remember he was like an OG, man. I remember seeing him back in the day, and then he like disappeared. And then it was funny to hear the podcast and his whole story about what happened. And then like he comes bouncing back one day on Instagram. I'm like, dude, I remember that guy. And that picture of him like eating a freaking roach or whatever it was. I was like, I want to meet that dude someday. He's crazy, you know? And we'll hang out, eat some hissing roaches together. And I wouldn't do that. But it was cool to hear his whole story and like how he's breeding the Merton water monitors. Because I go to the Bronx Zoo when I'd be in New York. We'd have downtime, and I'd go there and just stare at the tank with the Merton's water monitors in it and just like geek out over it, you know? And that's what's funny. Like if I'm not doing something with animals, I'm always somewhere with animals. Like it's like I just have to be around them all the time, or I just don't feel whole, you know? I'll tell you something now. You want to hear another funny story? I'll tell you a funny story about that. When we got married, we went to Hawaii. And my wife was like, we get on the plane, I crack open a Reptiles magazine, and she looked at me. My wife's cool as hell, man. She's a cool chick. She deals with a lot. She's helped me with my animals for years. And she's like, I never thought I'd be doing this, pulling frozen mice out of the buckets to feed my owls and stuff and putting them on plates. And she's a cool chick. I love her to death, you know. And she goes, listen, for this honeymoon, her grandpa, you know, gave us a trip to Hawaii. Because I never go away. We'd never go away. We didn't think we were going to go away. All these animals, my brother stepped up. We had some friends step up. This is before we had all the crazy mammals and my facility that we built and stuff. And my wife goes, for this, all I ask is that we do nothing animal-wise. We just hang out, drink, go to the beach, nothing, you know. When I set this up, I booked the Tiki Hotel, which was one door next to the zoo, Honolulu Zoo. So when I would wake up in the morning, I would say, you know, I'm married now. You know, I don't want to get the married 20. I don't want to get the dad bod. I got to stay in shape. She was like, wow, that's cool. So I'm like putting my running shoes on. I'd run my ass 100 feet to the front of the zoo, and I get to the zoo. I'm like a big kid, and I'm like, she goes, you want a day pass or a season pass? I'm like, how much are the season passes? She's like, $50. I'm like, I'll take one of those. We were there for like 14 days, like 2 weeks, 11, 12 days, something like that. I went to that zoo every day, came back in the morning. I'd go there for like an hour, made friends with like the chimp keeper, talked to the reptile guy. They bred freaking croc monitors there. They had them outside talking about breeding croc monitors, and it was awesome. So then the last day of vacation, my wife goes, you know, you've been really good, like not geeking out, having to be around animals. Let's go to the zoo's right next door. Did you know that? I'm like, no. So let's go to the zoo. I'm like, all right. So we walked to the zoo, and I'm like, dude, I'm not busting out the season pass. Like, I could have, but not. So I'm like, oh, and the lady behind the window, the older lady there, she was like a host who just kind of worked there. She, like, looked at me like she wanted to say to me, don't you have a season pass? You know, like, you're here every day. Hey, Jeff, you know? So she goes, looks at me weird. My wife goes, two. And she goes, oh, okay. And she just rings it up, you know, I pay for it. Money's going towards the animals, you know, whatever, give them a little extra. I go in, we start walking by. The freaking reptile keeper looks at me and goes, hey, Jeff. I turn my head this way. My wife, like, looks at me, right? I'm like, yeah, reptile people, you know, we're all weirdos. We all know each other. Weird, huh? Guy from Buffalo talking to someone in Hawaii. So my wife kind of goes with it. We start walking. The chimp keeper is up on top of the rocks throwing food down to the chimps. And he goes, hey, Buffalo Jeff. Dude, you're like 3 hours late today, man. What are you coming? Hey, what are you bringing your beautiful wife with you? I'm like, oh, dude.
That's
so
awesome.
She like turns and looks at me, and she's like, you got some explaining to do. I'm like, did I tell you how much I love jogging? I love jogging. I jogged to the zoo and around the zoo. I jogged, you know? And yeah, dude, I'm obsessed with it. Everything animals all the time. Like, I definitely need some kind of counseling for sure.
Yeah. No, that's the only way to be, man. I'm the same way. It's just, even at fucking Daytona Beach this past year, I went down there, and you know what I was doing at 10 o'clock at night? Walking in a foot of water trying to barehand fish all night. And
yeah, I heard that on one of the podcasts. That was awesome. I heard you got one too. You got one.
Fuck yeah, I got one. It took a while. I just had to be a little sober. That was the problem. I wasn't sober enough the first night. I was more sober the next night. I got it done.
That's awesome. That's so great. That is so great. Yeah, that's impressive, man. Yeah, it's always like the littlest thing. Like when we go to Disney, man, I'm there with my kids. Me and my son are walking around at night. My wife's like, "Aren't you guys tired?" Me and my wife and my daughter go to the pool, like night swimming. And on our way there, we go like the way to go like through like the most creepy woods part. We saw like pygmy rattlesnakes, giant day geckos, little tokay geckos, house gecko, and I was just like geek out. Me and my son, and we're trying to catch these, and he's like, "Be careful! Don't ruin the tail! Don't ruin the tail!" You know, and we're trying to grab them off the wall, and like it's all awesome. There was tree frogs down there, all the different tree frogs in there, right outside your doors and stuff, and it was just cool, man. My mother-in-law's yelling, "There's a frog in the room! There's a frog!" So they opened the door, a frog jumped in, so then I'm running to her room trying to catch a frog, and it's just my son's in there. He's like, $5 if I catch it. $5. I'm like, $5. I'm like, if I catch it, you give me 20. You know, we're going back and forth. Then we started just because we love churros, so we're there and we're like, all right, whoever catches a frog, fine. Whoever catches a frog, gets unlimited churros the next day. So, freaking son got it. I spent like $60 on freaking churros. But yeah, he was a master, man. He snagged that thing right off a cup, right on the side of the sink, and he snagged up. Got it. The head's there. He's like, I'm not switching hands. I'm being careful. Take it outside. It's cool. It was just anytime, dude. Any way you can be around animals. My wife's like, we always go to the same, Disney one. Don't you want to go somewhere else? And this is the most like in the wild. And everyone's like, don't you go to Animal Kingdom? I'm like, nah, dude. There's another one there where you can see all kinds of wildlife, alligators, and we always go to this certain one over and over again. And now I'm having a brain fart with the one that we go to, but it's like a tropical island, and it's great. There's so much wildlife there that it's just awesome. Sorry,
yeah, no, I got
Disney, but
no, fuck, man. Yeah, I got another one at Daytona. I got a Facebook profile picture. I've got a crab in my mouth, a real sandy ass crab. I look fucking crazy. We're walking on the beach, and I see this crab take off and go down this hole. Grown ass man digging a hole. I'm like fucking a foot deep, and whoever I was dating at the time is like, maybe you should stop. And I'm like, oh, I gotta almost be there, man. I gotta be getting fucking close to this fucking crab. And just kept going. I got fucking sand in my nails. I probably broke one. I finally got that motherfucker. Got right to the very bottom, man. I was excited as shit. Like, and that's the way I'm gonna be forever. That's the way I was as a kid. I can't get that out of my system. I'm fucking obsessed, dude. Just like you.
I'm animals all the time. Sorry,
100%.
I'm talking about my son. My son just called in here and messed up his shot. Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Still looking great, buddy.
Awesome.
Cool. So, well, you guys do a little stalking, Ben. Was that you raising your hand? Is that your signature move? What do you got going on right now?
I was saying Ryan hasn't asked any questions lately. I'm waiting for that because I know
I asked more questions than you asked, Ben. The heck?
I have a million questions, but good, Ryan.
Ask away, man. Anything. I'm down. Whatever.
What's the top reptile breeding of the year for you?
That's a good one. I would say the green tree monitors, because it's something I wanted to do forever.
Nice.
I had this pair from Ben Siegel for probably like 10 years. I've had this pair of green trees, and I just never put that much effort into it. I took care of them, and I fed them, and I'd see them breed, and I'd be like caught up with doing so much other stuff that I'd come back and see a male with an egg in his mouth, or like, I'd miss the eggs, or that she would like reabsorb them. And then now with COVID, I was at my facility all the time, like really hyper focusing and everything. And I was watching her dig, and I put the bird nest box in, the real long, tall one. She went in there, laid eggs at the bottom, and I got 4 eggs and hatched out 2. So I was like super pumped about it, about that. That was like one of the highlights to actually hatch out. And then I was pumped this year because it's been a few years again, because I don't think I really, again, I took care of them, fed them, but I wasn't really overly concerned if they bred. If they did, they didn't. But I got the strokes the eye, which were the Kidgey skinks this year. I had 7 babies from 1 female, and people told me that was impossible, but we had 7. And then we had 5 of the Cunningham skinks, and then I had 4 of the Strelata, the tree Gurnia skinks. So I love those. I love the tree skinks, and the Gurnia are just like, dude, they're addicting, and they're just so freaking awesome. So that was really awesome. And then, like, on the side note, like a geek note, I had a female tokay gecko forever that I actually caught at Markheim's Day up on top of the reptile thing. A chameleon got out. Like, there's a chameleon. So I climbed that big center island, get to the top, and I'm like, there's a chameleon. I grab the chameleon. I go, there's a tokay gecko. And the girl Maria that worked there is like, well, if you catch it, you can keep it. So I caught this tokay, bit my thumb. I didn't care. I just carried it down. And I'm like, give me a deli cup. Put it in the deli cup. No big deal. Well, fast forward, I had it like 3-4 years. I talked to Joe Hupp at like the shows or something. I was asking about if he had tokays. He was like, no, I was looking for one myself, but I'm looking at male tokay. And I just didn't want to mess with wormy imports and that. But I'm like, oh, it'll happen. Well, pet store up here, Pets Plus, I was in there doing something, and I go in, and they had this tokay, big tokay, and I go, dude, that's a monster tokay. Is it male or female? And they're like, I don't know. And they're all waiting for me to get bit. And I went and I grabbed him. I looked at him, I'm like, the male. I'm like, how much? I bought him, brought him home, put them together. And this year, I had some pictures on like Facebook, I think, or not Facebook, on Instagram. But I got to post a couple more. This tokay, I've had him now like 4 years. It's the biggest tokay I've ever seen. The male, my hand's there. This thing is my hand looks miniature compared to it. And this year we hatched out, I want to say, over 50 baby tokays.
Wow.
From one pair. I can't get her to stop. And she doesn't look bad. She just keeps laying them and laying them and laying them and laying on this pork slab. And like, she's eating like Pangea diet, the breeder diet. She's eating bugs and dubias. And she just keeps going. And I'm like, this is insane. But they're the coolest thing. And right now I got a bunch of little hand-raised tokays that are like tame and they're cool as hell. And I don't think I ever want to part with them. But, most people like look at a tokay like, oh, tokay. But they're cool as hell, man. They're especially little captive-bred hand-raised babies. So to me, that was like, the fact that they just keep hatching out. Like, and we leave them in there with mom and dad. We have different sizes. But once you take them out, you can never put them back in. Because I did that once, and then we found one with no head the next day. And it's weird. I don't know if it's something with scent. I don't know if it's, the dad knows he left and then he came back. I don't know. But, it was crazy. We just kept cranking them out. And it's funny because people like, that's kind of the part of the reason why I don't go on a lot of forums or say a lot of stuff. As soon as you say that, people are like, oh, what are you, a crack smoker, 50 tokays? Sorry, I think it's 47 that I have there. She's laying triple eggs. Like, it's stupid. I don't know what I'm doing besides feeding them good, loving them, and missing them. And, you go on there and they got to argue with, 15 corn snake commandos that you're, don't know what you're talking about with tokays. So a lot of times I just kind of keep a lot of stuff to myself, but it's cool to be on a podcast to be able to geek out with other reptile people and talk about, different reptiles and things like that. But yeah, it's cool, man. We hatched those. I hatched out pancake tortoises. That was a big thing. I loved it. I got a nice colony of pancakes, some albino red-eared sliders, some redfoot tortoises, hermins, elongated. Got some forsythia, big tortoise geek. But yeah, dude, it was a good year for a lot of children's pythons, and we hatched out a ton of those. So I was able to wholesale a lot of stuff, which helped. And then afterward, I should have I talked to people. They're like, dude, Morph Market and all, you should have put this stuff up. And I'm like, I didn't know any better at the time. I was just like, I never did that. I just wholesaled it. I just moved it all. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's crazy to see like Dave was saying that a lot of the stuff, how it's blowing up. Like a lot of people I know that are breeding stuff, they're like, dude, I can't get stuff. I can't keep stuff I wanted to hold back, I sold because the market's insane. So that's awesome too for the market and the hobby and all that. So that was pretty wild.
Yeah, and too, like with all these species you've been working with for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, all of a sudden are popular. just all of a sudden overnight become popular. And like even talking like the blue tongue skink thing, $25 to $450 just a couple years ago. And that's for your most
Dude.
basic bitch classic.
Yep. And it's funny because I talked to Robin, you know, and shouts out to Robin and Chad, Pro Exotics. You know, I went down to visit them when I went on a snowboarding trip, and they were nothing but awesome, gracious to me, gave me some sweatshirts and stuff. And then I hit them up at Tinley when I went there for the Burmese Python incentive that Ben Siegel sent me down there for, and just kind of repping that. And it was cool because I bred a bunch of Macklot pythons before anyone that even really cared about them. And Tracy Barker, through a friend of mine at the Buffalo Zoo, I called her. She called me back and walked me through hatching them on the phone in my parents' basement. I was a kid. So, like, shouts out to Tracy, too. That was like, she was telling me, okay, you're going to get a razor blade. Because, like, one popped out, but the other ones, it was like 5 days and none were coming out. She's like, they probably don't have an egg tooth. You want to cut it? She was telling me what to do. And they pop out and take a big breath of air. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, crying on the phone with her. I'm like, they're breathing. They're alive. You know? And I had some of these, and it's like the biggest, like, oh, my God, this is incredible. You know? And then I went to sell them. And I remember, you know, I held a bunch, but a couple of years later, I called Robin at Pro Exotics. I'm like, dude, I got Macklot's pythons. He goes, that's great. No one wants them. How about, he goes, we'll give you $11 for it. I go, what? He goes, better yet, I'll give you $11 just to keep them. And I'm like, what? What? I was like, and then I took a batch to Tinley, and people are coming up to me before show even opened on Friday night. I was just unloading them, and they're like, are those captive born? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, what do you want from them? I'm like, I was asking $5 a pair. And then people took like 2 pairs. Another guy took 2 pairs. I'm like, this is insane. I didn't even know pricing wise. It was just crazy. And so, yeah, you're right. A lot of these species no one cared about. Now all of a sudden people love them again, you know, and want them back. And you know, it's wild, man. It's definitely wild. It comes full circle, you know.
Yeah, you never really know. I mean, you know, there are some reasons why certain things will get popular. You know, there's certain reasons why certain Madagascar things get popular when they stop becoming imported animals. But, you know, even like the skink thing, I mean, generally between Brian Barczyk talking about his videos and then Joe Ball over in Australia doing all these absolutely fabulous colored animals, even though we couldn't have them, it gained popularity and all of a sudden the species took the fuck off.
Yeah, exploded.
And again, a lot of it did. And it's a pet market, man. You know, have faith in the pet market. The pet market is so much bigger than the breeder market, and people don't even understand that. Skinks are where they are right now because of the pet market.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because that was my key to selling them, because the moms would want a reptile for their kids when I'm doing a kid party, but they didn't want it. The big thing was, I don't want to feed them bugs. You know, and I'm like, you can feed them cat food and fruits and vegetables, and the mom's eyes would light up like, what? Dog food? And they were like, okay, you know, so that was great. Sprinkle a little bit of calcium on it. So that was like an easy sale. Like I heard you say on one of the other podcasts about like when at shows, it was like that was the best sale because people wanted that, you know, because it's just an easy keeper and they're a cool lizard. But it's so funny. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older now or what, but I'm like, I have a trio now. I got rid of all my blue tongues, and I got a trio of just nice northerns to have them, and they'll be breed enough to breed. They'll be big enough next year. But I'm like, son of a bitch, everything that I have, and these are the ones that like shit on the wall and whip their tail through it and all. I'm like, really? I'm like, what? Like I got all these animals, and I got to do like extra cleanup for blue tongues, and then I'm like, oh, it just gets me so frustrated. And they walk through their food, poop through it, and then drag it through the water thing. I'm just like, seriously, guys? Like these things. I'm like, it's funny because I never cared much about it, but I'm like, dude, I'm spending a lot of time taking care of 3 northern blue tongues. Like this is insane. And yeah, I love them, but it's just funny because at one point I had probably over 100 of them. I don't even know how I did. I did it with the old Freedom Breeder, like those old Freedom Breeder Dascacil racks, and I had a bunch of those. And then one day my wife came in and she's like, "This sucks." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "It looks archaic. It looks barbaric." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "All this metal everywhere and it's like dungeony. That sucks." And I'm like, okay. She's like, "You should have them in a big enclosure and blah, blah, blah." I'm like, yeah, I get it. But, you know, I got 100 of them. Like, what am I supposed to do? And then I kind of started phasing out like a lot of the just selling off some blue tongues and things like that, and cutting back on doing a lot of that stuff. I phased out of blue tongues right when they went through the roof, right when they were like $250 wholesale or something. I'm like, of course, that's when I sell them all. But it just it got out of control, and it got to the point where I loved them, but I was producing less when I had more than when I had less. I guess, if that makes sense.
Here's the deal, bud. Our collection of blue tongues is fucking vast. I've got over 200 fucking blue tongues at home. I might have 250 for all I know. When I had fucking 27 of them, I was killing it. When I had 100 of them, my numbers started going down.
In the rack? You had them like those rack, snakes rack.
Yeah. I made all my own racks back in the day with IKEA tubs. It was just this really nice size tub. We upgraded everything to the ARS tubs now with the window in front. I'm going to start installing LED lighting in some of them, and we've actually looked at some other cage options coming out of China right now. I'm really a big fan of. But I keep on upgrading and giving better cages and better everything, and my numbers keep going further and further down. So I'm throwing more money at it every year.
Yeah,
the diet's better.
Crazy.
Yeah, I got chickens on the property because we wanted to harvest their eggs for their diet. Like, we went to jumping through hoops for these motherfuckers, and my percentages are going down every single year.
Dude, that's what happened. I love fat tail geckos, and I had a lot of different albinos, just normal striped fat tails, and I just kept holding back everything to breed. And then next thing you know, my numbers kept going down. And then when I had nice group 1.3, 1.3, 1.3, just a rack of them, I'm cranking them out, nice healthy babies. So yeah, I got to the point where I was kind of all right, I'm going to downsize on things, keep 3 of these, a trio of this, a couple more of these maybe, and just have different stuff to work with and go that route. But that's what happened with blue tongues. When I have in snake racks, kind of like when you were living in Buffalo and I saw them, you have in the melamine racks and stuff. That's when I had no problem with them, and I built melamine cages with glass slides, 12 inches high, and I built these, almost like a bookshelf for blue tongues. And I had maybe 20 blue tongues. Dude, I was getting huge litters from huge northerns I got from Pete Weiss that would spit out 20-something babies. And I was like, this is great. And then I was like, I'm going to hold back more and have 20 other females give 20 more babies. And it didn't work that way. I had 20 other females give 3 babies, 4 babies, 6 babies, 7 babies. And I'm like, man, if you're in this game long enough, you go through the whole thing where you're like, I gotta have a ton more, and then you come back to where you're like, I did, we're saying now, I did better when I had smaller mounts and things like this, or I did this different, or I did, and you go through it. You've been in the game long enough, you go through it, and you switch everything up, and then you just kind of come back to what works for you. But yeah, I try to do everything, and I'm a big fan of those Tetra enclosures, like the 40 breeder and the 75 gallon with the sliding glass doors, and I can put my lights in there, give them nice UVB for all my Ackies and Agurnia and dwarf monitors, and even all my skinks and everything, or stuff like that. And I have those all set up on racks, and then I got a lot of visions stuff too. But yeah, man, I wanted to start keeping different things and things that I started for a while chasing the market, and I was kind of oh, dude, these are big. I'm gonna get these. These are getting big. I'm gonna get these, and then I did that for about a year and a half, just for the wholesalers, to have stuff the wholesalers want. I'm breeding veiled chameleons. I'm I like them, but what the hell am I doing with veiled chameleons? It was just a lot of work. So I just got to the point where I'm going to keep what I really like, and just if I look at something and I'm I'm taking care of it, but I'll find a new home for that reptile wise, or someone that wants to look at it and tweak out when they see it. But I want to have everything that when I go near that enclosure, I get giddy and holy shit, man, and next one, oh my god, next one, oh my god, just tweak out. I go to bed at night, excited to wake up the next morning, get to my facility, and do it all over again. So I just wanted to start doing things like that rather than trying to chase. I've heard you guys talk on podcasts and stuff too, chase the market. Just do what you really love and that kind of stuff. And that's what I started to do, and just enjoy it more. Enjoy it more when you can do that, rather than be I gotta have the most, this, and I gotta produce the most of this, and I gotta, because it feels all the times I've done that, I never produced the most of it. But when I just really loved it and cared for it, I got 7 Gigi skinks.
Nice.
Just because I got rid of all other stuff to put more time into them and love on them, I had a female pop out 7 babies. I'm like, I never did that. When I had 4 pairs of these skinks, I get like 2 from each. I get 1 pair. I take good care of them and love on them and give them a few extra roaches, I guess, and they give me some extra babies. It's crazy, you know?
Yeah, no, and the burnout factor in the industry, the fact that it's a revolving door of new breeders, like you said, like, cool, let's chase a bunch of big projects or chase a species that's cool on Monday and then no one gives a shit about on Friday. Like, kind of get in, find it. This is a labor of love. Work with what you want to work with, create your own market. I mean, the greatest breeders in this industry are great because they market, they get you excited about what they're working with. They create their own sales. They don't just ride whatever is going on with somebody else. So like I said, just be passionate about something, pick it out and stick with it. Otherwise, again, your shelf life is 5 years and you'll be gone. You're not the first.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's exactly it, dude. That's exactly it. And that's exactly what I had to, just come to, you know what I mean? It's just funny because I'll see stuff like these people jump on this stuff. And even up here at like the Buffalo shows and stuff, they're like, they see something, these people jump on it, and then like 2 shows later, they got them on their table selling the entire collection, because they just thought like it was gonna be hot. So let's get it right now. And then they're like, oh, this isn't what I'm into, just got to do what you love, man. Do what you love. It makes everything so much better.
Well, 1,000 times, man. Like I said, I've had so many ins and outs in this hobby and had to rebuild my collection so many times and jump through hoops and make sacrifices. Like I said, it's this hobby first. Everything else in life has come second. And that's the way you got to be with animals. Like you said, you're not taking vacations. You take a vacation, you panic the whole fucking time. And every time you come back, something fucking went wrong when you were gone. You should have been there.
Dude,
so
yeah, that's what it is. And that's why now with kids, I want to at least do 1 vacation a year. We'll do the Disney thing. But the whole time, I'm watching all my cameras over my phone. I can watch all my cameras. Sorry, I plugged you guys in here and I'm sliding away. I can watch all the cameras at my facility. I can watch the people that are working for me. And it's like, and I got to a point where my wife's like, leave your phone in the hotel room, like, and give them my number. If there's an emergency, they can call me. And then I could actually start relaxing because I'd sit there in line at Disney watching what's going on at the building, because like you said, you're just worried, because it's my whole world. This isn't like a phase. This isn't just something to do. This isn't like, well, I'm going to do this to get famous or no, dude, I do this because I love it. And even if I didn't, no one else did this in the world, I'd still be doing it just because I love it. And like, it's just what I want to do. And, I'll go to my grave doing it. I look to the days when I'm like 80 years old, like with tortoise pens outside. That's why I got tortoises now. Cause I'm like, all right, dude, I'll be breeding even more and I'll set them up and I'll just go out there and be 70 years old with a cane going around and have my grandkids pick up the eggs because I can't bend over, just I'll always have stuff, man. I just always want it. I always want to have stuff. I just don't like true animal people have it. You just know it. You don't feel whole without it or without being around it. And that's me, man. I just love animals way too much.
No, I agree, but well, Ben, you stuck your finger up. I want to hear a little something. You put your fucking hand down, Ryan. It's Ben's turn.
I love when you guys do that. I love it. I laugh in my car every time I'm listening to the podcast with Dave doing that. So funny.
So I have a bunch of questions, obviously, but I want to hear more about the ins and outs of breeding blackhead pythons. So breeding them and then actually getting them to start eating.
Dude, the craziest thing about blackheads were, I'm not going to lie, I had them in a tote. I did an Australian display for a kid's school the first year that old enough to be. I got them from Ben Siegel as babies. I raised them up. I just had them. Like, I was in no rush to breed them. I had them like 7 years. And I just raised them, and they're beautiful. And I went to a kid's school, and I did an Australian display. And I brought my laughing kookaburra. I brought that Australia's a tough place to get a lot of mammals out of. You really can't. So I brought like a baby kangaroo in a pouch, a sugar glider, my shingleback, which I've had forever, a bearded dragon, and I brought my blackheads and my walnuts. And I just had them in enclosures. This kid would walk through and look at it like a mini zoo. And when I got home at the time, I had an employee that was putting stuff away. And when we got to the facility and we were putting things away, and he never put the blackheads back in the rack. And I didn't know that for about a week because I had, people taking care of the stuff for me. And I go through and check things out when I plan on breeding them. So I was I have a 2-car garage that is attached to my facility that I have a lot of storage crates in and boxes of like cork bark and where I keep all the stuff that I'll get in. And I went out there and opened one of these Sterilite containers, black Sterilite containers with like the jet lock things on them. And I popped it up and there's 2 bags in there. And I see the one kind of move. And I'm like, oh my God. And I open the bag quick and it's the blackheads and they're ice cold. The garage doesn't get colder than 50 degrees because there's a heater there, but they're ice cold. In my mind, I'm like, oh my God, how long have they been out there? I started looking at my phone and my calendar to see when I did that school in Orchard Park, and I'm looking through things and I'm like, dude, they sat in the garage for 2 weeks. Now, mind you, I before I brought them out to the school, I soaked them and cleaned out their system. I didn't feed them because I didn't want them pooping and stuff at a school show. So their systems were clean, thank God, but they got ice cold. Colder than I would ever do. And I brought them back and I put them back in the same enclosure at the time. I don't know what I was thinking, but I put them both in there and I went to get water and stuff like that. And they had the heat pad on. And then I got caught up with something else and I went somewhere else and I came back the next morning and they were locked up. And I was like, holy shit. Like, I thought they were dead. They're breeding. Like, what is going on? So, and I always heard people say, you got to drop them real cool, and this and that. I heard some old timers say you keep them like colubrids. You let them get a little warmer during the day, but you can actually drop them like colubrids. And I never did that ever again since, but it worked. And that was the first year I got, what did I get? Like 13 black-headed python eggs, but
Nice.
only 7 looked good. And then I only hatched 3 out of all that. Because I set them up the way I did every other python with vermiculite in the Rubbermaid. And at my facility, I have a 10 by 10 incubation room. You walk into it. It's kind of like this. There's a door on this side. There's a door on the other side with the glass window and just the baker's racks. And it's set at like A7. I put all the python eggs in there and other gecko things and stuff I wanted at 87. And it just runs in there with a space heater and fans. And I put them in there and I just watched eggs go fuzzy one after the other. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm using foot powder. I'm like, I gotta save these, and I'm pulling the other ones away, and I rip one open trying to get the fungusy ones off the other ones. I was just stressing out, and then I had Wilma eggs, and I had the same problem with that. And then I did the suspended incubation with them with the Sims container with wet soaked sponges and a little bit of water on the bottom. And then the next year after that, I got the blackheads 2 more years after that. It was 2 years later I had them again. Then a year later, I got eggs from them again, and I haven't bred them in probably 2 years now. I haven't bred them, but because I was busy and I just wasn't trying to. I just had them, and I'm like, oh, I'll give them a year off. And the Wolmas, but I incubated them with a suspension. And the other thing I did was after they hatched out, I kept them all together in the incubating container and left them in there like 2 days after they hatched. And they were starting to like snap at you and stuff. And that's what I wanted to see, get that attitude going. And what I got a lot of them feeding, as crazy as it sounds, by brain. I was braining them. And I was doing the, the hell was it? Bearded dragon skin on them. And I even did something, this guy gave me this cocktail with like, not bearded dragon. Oh my God, I'm sorry. Knobtail gecko skin, and this guy gave me this concoction where you put it in with water and mush it all up and make this like oozy pasty stuff. And I found it was better a lot of times just to take the gecko skin and kind of put it on the mouse and frozen thawed and leave it in there, and they nail it. And I would never had a problem. Then I did
It's a good idea.
That stuff that came out like that lizard scent stuff. I tried that a couple times. That helped me. That helped me with a lot with anthill pythons and red children's, because I had a problem with them. But then I got to the point with like blackheads. I was kind of like, you know what? Screw it. You don't want to eat? Screw it. And I'd walk by and I'd watch one hit the front of the Rubbermaid. And I'm like, all right. So I dropped like a live fuzzy in there, or hopper in there, or a pinky rat, and it'd be gone in the morning. So it kind of got to the point where I know this sounds crazy and people think I'm crazy, and people said stuff to me before, like, you what? But I get to the point where I'm like, I think sometimes when people breed things, my philosophy is like, you get these people, they have like a pair of woolmas, a pair of blackheads, and a pair of jungle carpets. And then they breed them, they obsess over the eggs so much, but that most of the time they're in there boinking the egg and lifting the lid, checking everything out, that they screw it up that way. Or they're like, oh, it's drying out, so they start pouring water in, so they screw the eggs up that way. And if they're lucky enough to hatch them, I think a lot of people just like fiddle fuck around with them so much that they just never eat because they're so freaking stressed out. Like I would take my children's, put them in these racks in these sandwich containers, and take a paper towel, crumple up a paper towel, or I take the little these little plastic trays like that you get for like little like condiment trays, I guess they were, and I cut them in half. I saw it on an old snake bites video and put them in there, and they lay under that, and I would just throw pinkies in, and get to the point where like, oh, you guys didn't eat in 30 days after you hatched. Everyone else is freaking trying to pinky pump stuff down a spotted python's mouth, and I was just like, I left them alone. I threw a live pinky in there, and I'd come back, and they all ate. They'd all end up eating eventually. You know, some of them I would do the the lizard scent thing, which I would try to see if there's ways I could, like Dave talks about every year, try to do different things and see how you could tweak it a little. I try to tweak to see if I could get them feeding better. But a lot of times I found that just don't mess with them. They hatch out, leave them together, let them, I leave them together for a couple of days, and they kind of like are all together, and they're all kind of striking, and they get a little pissed off. Then you separate them out. And then sometimes I won't throw a live food in there for 2 weeks, and I'll throw something live in and move on. And I'll come back to the rack, and I'll even be mind blown. I'll go pulling tubs out. I'm like, no dead pinky smell. You're like, they ate them. They ate. And then I'd have like one blackhead that wouldn't eat, or one woman that didn't eat. So like I had a couple blackheads that finally got to the point where I had to actually force feed, and that I had one I force fed 6 months, but he ended up feeding. Eventually, they just like kick in. And same thing with the Wolma. But I don't want anything to die. But I got to the point where I think it's because I have so many animals and just so much going on that I'm not the same person that has like, 2 pairs of snakes that they just fuss over it so much. Or people get, and I catch myself getting like that sometimes where I'm like, if they don't eat, they're going to die. I'm like, all right, Jeff, click off that. Step out of the crazy world for a second, because you're getting caught up in crazy world where you're like, it's the people like when I used to work at a pet store, like, my bearded dragon didn't eat for 2 days. He's going to die. And you're like, dude, your bearded dragon will be fine for like a month. I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but they'll find a way, like they'll be okay. Like I wouldn't recommend that, but it's just the fact that it's like, I was getting myself all worked up, and I'm like, I got to get them feeding. And I catch myself in there and poking them and putting their rat in their face and tweaking it and smacking them and touching their tail and poking them again and bringing the pinky, rubbing it on the snake's face. And when I finally got to the point where I was kind of like, whatever, man, you want to eat, eat. If not, I don't know what to tell you. And I just kind of went through it. It just kind of started working. And I was talking to a girl about it at Tinley, and she's like, that's like animal abuse. She was like was buying one of my things. She's like, they have to eat. They have to eat every day. All my snakes eat on every Monday and every Friday. And I'm like, that's great. But like, I'm just telling you what I do and what worked for me for years. That if they want to eat, don't force them. Oh, if mine don't eat, I get this thing called a pinky pump and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and your snake's going to be dead in a week because you probably don't even know what you're doing with pinky pump. And you're going to put 6 pinkies and just swirl it until you got like a sausage for a snake that can't digest shit, and he'll be dead. He's going to roll. So like, I don't know. My philosophy is just kind of go with it. The less needle dicking around with it, the better. Just let them be. And they all kind of come around. I've always had that happen. Jungle carpets, they wouldn't start feeding. I was kind of like, they'll eat eventually, But the lizard scent helps out a lot. I've done stuff with an old trick from Tracy Barker, which helped. Campbell's soup, chicken soup broth, works. It works.
Really?
I got blood pythons that wouldn't feed, Borneos that wouldn't feed for me. Chicken soup. She said that on an old National Geographic special that I had on like VHS tape that I'd watch till my tape would pop. And she said it on there. And then I talked to her once about it over the phone. I would talk to her here and there, about pythons and stuff when I was starting to hatch stuff out. And she said that, yeah, the old Campbell's soup, chicken broth. And it got a bunch of, got blackheads going a couple times. Chicken soup broth. People are like, no way. I'm like, I don't get chicken noodles and dip them in the noodles and hand it to them, but the chicken broth, it worked. I'm just going by, what I say. And the other thing is I try to stay off a lot of like, I catch myself doing it, and that's when I take the trip to Crazy Town. Like, if I can't get something feeding, I go and Google it. The worst thing ever. Then you're on the trip to crazy town. Then you're going crazy. Then I can't sleep because I'm like, how do I feed this? What do I do? Now I got to do this. Ed in Nebraska said to force feed him. So next thing you know, I got bottom python, and I'm trying to, and I'm like, what am I doing? I know better than that. Like, what am I doing? Like, don't get caught up in that. Just like, and I refer to it like the way, like, because my wife, I love her to death, but she's like, I got a bump on my arm. She's WebMDing it. She's like, I got cancer of the vagina. And I'm like, what? She's like, it's a bump here, and it says on WebMD. I'm like, that's why I don't read that stuff. Because the one time I read something, it was like, oh, do you have this? I'm like, yeah, I have this. They're like, do you have this? Yes, you have this. Do you have this? Yes, I have this. And they're like, oh, is your uterus whatever? I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, dude, this is like sickness for a female that a male can't even get. And I'm reading I'm like, I'm done with all this. I just kind of go with what works. It's not broke, don't fix it. And just try to let the animals will tell you what they need if you are open enough to listen to it. They will tell you what you need. A lot of people just don't. They're too easy to click at stuff online or talk to a friend or, do this or that. But sometimes if you just listen and watch, your animals will tell you what they need. It's crazy, but it happens. And a lot of times, like, you just see by leaving the Blackhead alone, you walk by, they start striking in front of the container. And I'm like, they're hungry. So I'll throw a pinky rat in and see what happens. And then next morning, the pinky rat's gone. But if I only had blackheads, and those are the only 3 snakes I hatched that year, and I kept opening the tub 6 times a day and poking them and trying to shove stuff in his face, that blackhead will either never eat or you'll be force feeding him 6 months because he's almost on death's door because he's just stressed. But, the toughest things I ever had to get feeding were my anthills. They were a pain in the ass, and I've heard you guys talk about it on other podcasts. And
that's actually what I was going to talk to you about.
Yeah, I love them so much. But I found with that stuff that, like, those reptile links or whatever, they make that lizard scent stuff. I put that on the little, like, pale pink dude, and I just, like, marinated in it. And some people are like, you can't do that, or you shouldn't. If I have something that won't eat anything, or you drop them in there and the anthills coil up right away and don't want anything, I marinate it in that in a little 2-ounce little cup that I use to feed my chihuahuas and lychees and stuff. And I take one of those cups, put some of that in there, let it soak in there, and then put it in some of the most trouble feeders' tubs. They'll eat it.
Good. I tried that a couple of years ago. I didn't have any luck with it, unfortunately.
Really?
It's funny. Oh, yeah. I was going to say, oh, shit, I'm out. Orion.
You go ahead. I was just saying I picked some of that stuff up a couple years ago because it's probably our 4th or 5th season producing anthills, and we probably made 30 or 40 babies, and only one has survived. So it's a little daunting to have that keep happening over and over again.
Yeah, dude, that's the worst.
So this time we're going to outcross them because we have 2 different lines, and hopefully maybe that'll help strengthen them up or whatever. But
I was gonna say, are the babies like real weak out of the egg? Do they have any vigor like out of the egg, or are they kind of like fishing bait, like a worm, just kind of?
No, they seem fine, and they hang on until they starve to death. But it takes a couple months for it to happen. We got one to start taking pinks on his own last season, and so we sold that one, but we've probably lost 30 babies. Like, this is going to be our last season trying to breed them.
The other thing I can tell you about them is I try to get mice that are like on the smaller side if you can get them. I hate breeding live mice. I hate it. I did it for years. My dad's friend took care of my mouse and rat colony for years. Then I had a fire and I lost that building. And then it was like one of those, do I do this? Do I start all over again and breed this? And I'm like, you know what? I got too much on my plate. I'm not going to do it. And of course, now small rats are $2.25 a piece. I'm like, of course. But I would get the smallest mice you can get, breed them, and get the tiniest pinkies. And even if you got to freeze them, like day-old, tiny pinkies. Sometimes mine would only take pinky heads. But it's gross. I don't like doing anything to any animal, but sometimes I feel like it's just like a baked bean when they're frozen thawed. But braining the pinkies.
Yeah, I haven't tried braining yet.
Yeah. Have you tried it?
No, I haven't tried that yet. No.
Dude, that's to me, that's also the magic potion. I don't know what the hell it is, but you can even take it and rub it on their mouth, get it in their nostrils, just rub it on them a little bit, put it in there and leave them alone. You'd be amazed. I don't even know who told me that trick or if I just did it myself because one exploded or something, but something about that, they love that. And even if you got to take one and mush it up and then use that to put on the other one that you're braining to get a lot of extra scent on it. I've had that I have beautiful granite pythons, but spotted granites, but her babies are always super small. She's a pain in the ass. All those babies are like a pain in the ass to feed. But I do the brain pinkies for them, and every time they take it. I just have my last one here. It hatched out in June. And the last one here, I was like, here's a brain pinky. Eat it or don't. I don't know what to tell you. And eventually I came in, I opened the tub, it was gone. And I did the pull through and look through the paper towel. I'm like, it ate it. You get all excited. I'm like, this is great. It ate it. I'm like, my wife will be here helping with the animals and look at me like, seriously? You're serious? I'm like, it ate the pinky. It only took 6 months, but it ate the pinky. But yeah, braining is, I hate saying it because it's just a gross thing, but it does help a lot. I've had that. That's my usually, if they don't eat frozen thawed, I'll do pinkies as hot as I can in like one of those steel dog bowl things with hook you hang on your fence for your dog. I'll hang that on my sink, put it hot as water I can in there, put the pinkies in there because that does 2 things. 1, gets rid of the pinky smell. 2, really heats them up. 3, helps to really burst them and get them kind of mushy so you have one there that you can kind of dip off of and get it on them. And that's my second move. That's my second go-to. And then after that, then, if it gets really bad, then I'll try the lizard skin, or my third go-to move is the lizard scent stuff that I'll try. But the brain pinkies usually really get them going. Give that a try. And try outcrossing them too, because I had ones that I got from Don Meeker, I believe, and we got babies out of them, but the babies are really weak and they never fed. They just never, like you're saying, they just did terrible. And I asked them if they're unrelated. Oh, it's an unrelated pair. Yeah. But as soon as I got an unrelated male, put them together, I got stronger babies. I got one from like Anthony Wren line, and it was a strong male, and he makes strong babies. So sometimes just outcrossing them, you'll see a difference too with them. That was another species as a kid that I like drooled over. I'm like, I gotta have these. I look them in a reptile book, and they're like spotted python. I'm like, that's no spotted python. That's something different. I got to get one of those. And then when you start looking into it more and people are like anthills, I'm like, I need one of those in my life. And then I got a pair, and then I got now I have 2 pairs, but I love them, man. I love them.
We have 2 pairs from 2 different lines. Ben actually got them from me for a present a couple years ago. It was nice of him.
Aw. Nice.
Got to keep reminding them. When we break up, they stay with me. So. But yeah, that's definitely a dream species. It just sucks to produce them so many times over and over again and watch the babies die.
Dude, that's the worst feeling. And I had that same feeling with Kimberly rock monitors year after year after year, fully formed babies in a shell, dead. Green tree monitor babies, a couple times I hatched eggs. Well, I didn't hatch them. One slashed his nose out, never came out. Then you go cut the egg open, fully formed, dead in the egg. Then I start doing the sim incubation for Woolman's blackheads and all the monitors. I always had luck with anthills and spotted just doing vermiculate like I do. But I started doing suspended incubation. That helped my incubation problem. And the brain pinkies helped with getting a lot of the little guys feeding that I couldn't get feeding. But when you said that, there's nothing worse than that. Like cut eggs open and I'm like, oh, 9 Kimberly lock monitors, all dead. Oh, 6 anthills, all dead, perfectly fully formed. Blackheads or Wolmas, and I would just be like want to cry, dude, because I love everything, and like, what did I do? And then I take it hard on myself, and I'm like, what did I do that I didn't, what did I do wrong? And then I wreck my brain, and then I go on and find, Stephen in Austin giving me facts, and then you look at his lineup, and he's got a corn snake, a king snake, and a leopard gecko, and he's telling me how to hatch out blackheads, So I'm like, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna like talk to people that know Tinley people, and then I'm gonna like just try to tweak things like Dave was saying. Try to tweak things yourself and just see what works, and talk to people that actually have like experience doing it. Like that's I love the internet, but sometimes just there's a lot of bad information there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And people telling me all this stuff with Kimberly's. Oh, what you got to do with Kimberly's is you put Kimberly's down. You got to put sand around them when they're in there to keep the water away from the eggs. I'm doing all this dumb stuff, and it's worse and worse. And then I talk to listen to podcasts with like Jeff Lem and different people, and they're talking about how they're doing certain things. So I'm tweaking it certain ways, and it works.
Yeah, I mean the problem with information, especially there being a Facebook, is the reality is I'm gonna hit up Jeff today and be like, hey, you know what really works? Juju beads. Eat some candy, spit on your mouse, give it to it. It's gonna fucking eat it. You're gonna tell it to Ben. Ben's gonna tell it to Ryan. Now it's a fucking fact.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's gonna start doing that, man. Like that's just the way this works. And don't get me wrong, some of the things that work are the craziest things ever. Like when I hear about the corn snake guys washing pinky mice with Dawn dish soap, I'm just like, who the fuck even thought that was a good idea in the first place? Is this fucking real? But
dude, it's like people online, they're like, oh, I stumbled on something. My son came to me and he's like, Dad, he's breeding bearded dragons. He goes, I found a way that we're going to get better red ones. I'm like, you have nice red ones. They produce nice red babies. What are you worried? No, I read online. You got to take Kool-Aid and you open the container and you put Kool-Aid around the eggs and on the eggs, and they absorb the Kool-Aid and you get better. I'm like, where did you find this? So he shows me on the internet, and he's 10. And I'm looking at this on the internet like, who in their right mind writes this? Who's going to Australia pouring red Kool-Aid in a termite mound for bearded dragons to turn red? I'm like, this is the stupidest thing. And people are believing this. I'm like, this is scary. Scary.
Yeah, no, it's fuck, man. Well, Benjamin, what do you got going up over there, man? We're at 2 hours and 20 minutes. Did we peak? Should we pull another story out of Jeff before he calls it? Where do you want to go with this, buddy? Ball's in your court.
Let's do one big wrap up right here, man. Let's get the knock him out of the park story, and then we'll go out on a high.
Oh,
no pressure. No pressure.
Well, let's try to.
I'll give you a story.
Okay.
You want a story?
I want a story.
A friend of mine, we were doing an episode of Jimmy Fallon, and this was never supposed to make it to the airwaves, but I told Ben and I was telling Shred and Reagan up here at a morning radio show that I do about it, and I told them not to air it. This is off the record, and they put it on one of their tune in to Shred and Reagan in the morning, listen to Jeff the Animal Guy, and they told half the story, and I was like, oh my God. But people always ask, does anything ever go wrong? And over the years, we never had an issue ever on Fallon and late night and doing anything. But a friend of mine from California has got Mickey the baboon. And this thing's a big-ass hamadryas baboon that was in movie like Rock of Ages. And like half those memes you see with like a baboon like throwing money around or on the computer, smashing things, that's my buddy Kevin's baboons. He does a lot of B-roll footage and stuff. He's the best baboon trainer on the planet, hands down. I watched him work an intact mandrill, okay? Just like insanity. And he was coming up here to shoot something in Brooklyn, so he brought his baboon with him. And I tied it into where I ended up, they called me for an episode of Fallon, and I said, I'll bring a baboon there. We'll have him sit on the desk. My buddy Kevin can train him. He'll cross his legs. He'll flip off. He can do the Italian FU. He'll bend over, slap his ass. This will be great late night, And at this time, it was late night at Jimmy Fallon, so you could get away with more risque stuff. And I said, even if we get him to sit on Jimmy's desk, sometimes he'll have a little golf tee going on, like most male primates will do. And I'm like, everyone will laugh, and then we'll, and it happened. And Jimmy's like, we'll pixel that, when we had him on. But every time I would go there, across the hall was Dr. Oz. And every time I would come Dr. Oz, I'll never forget, would have his plaid shirt on and tucked into his blue jeans. And he was right across the hall from when late night Jimmy Fallon would film. And every time we'd come there, he would just kind of peek through his door and just look at everything, right? And I would never hear Dr. Oz swear. You'd see him on TV. It's Dr. Oz, And he would look at me, or we'd be in the green room, like, talking. Because the Roots, when I walk out on the show, and I'm like, the Roots, my boys. And Jimmy was always like, they're not your boys. They don't even talk to you back there. Like, I would hang out with them the whole time before I went on. Like I have secret recordings of them with different people that Questlove maybe that are like some of the best like blues and stuff that they've done, and it just blows my mind that I just hang with these dudes. So they are my boys. I love the Roots, and they're all hanging out in the hallway, and Dr. Oz is in the hallway, and it was just kind of like everyone would hang out. I'd come here. I don't care if you scrape the gum off the floor, you're the sound guy, the light guy. I knew every guy's name. I was like, "What's up, Jim? What's up, Dave?" I would always like goof around with everybody and have a blast. So we'd be in the hallway. It's like a little party going on, and my buddy Kevin goes in the dressing room, and like before this, we had a problem with I brought a retic there, like a 22-foot reticulated python, and the thing shit all over the walls and all over everything in Rockefeller Center over the hallway. And Dr. Oz is like came down. Something else happened another time I was on, because at a while when it was late night, I was going on every 20 days, and Dr. Oz would sit there and he'd always look at me, and then the one time he'd go, "You know what, Jeff? Every time you're here, shit gets fucked up." Like that. And he'd just like walk out of the room, and everyone would laugh because I make Dr. Oz swear. So we're all in the hallway goofing around, and all of a sudden the door flies open. And my friend's baboon runs down the hallway of Rockefeller Center, 8th floor, runs down to a bank of elevators that they show like when they're doing elevator, soccer or whatever. And if you'd watch Late Night Jimmy Fallon years ago, and he runs down full grown, him and guy's baboon, trying to pry the doors open. I run out, all the guys from the Roots are like, "Oh shit!" They all dive in the room, all of them piling the door shut. Dr. Oz slams the door shut. I stand in the hallway. I never had one of these moments ever. I've always like grabbed animals or jumped on something. Dude, I froze. My mind's telling me, go, do this. I couldn't move my body. My feet were cemented to the ground. I was frozen, stiff. And I heard people like in slow-mo, like in movies, they're like, "Yeah, get him." And my buddy Kevin's running down the hall after him, right? He's running down the hall. The baboon's trying to get into the freaking elevators, and my mind's like, the baboon's climbing up to the next floor to Saturday Night Live, and opening up the doors, and the elevator climbing the things, or the car comes up. So we're like freaking out, and Kevin's like, Mickey, get back here. Normally he listens. Like I've been with him where we're walking through places in California. We're up on these, and the thing's just like on his friend's property, just walking loose. Like it's insane. It's an unbelievable feeling. And he's had him. He rescued him out of a lab. He's got his tattoo of his lab tattoo on the monkey's name, number on his wrist. Like it's crazy. And he just loved him, formed this bond. And this thing's been in more movies than most celebrities I know, and commercials and stuff. And the rundown with The Rock, he was in all this fun. I think he's baboons, and it's Kevin, man. And so he runs down. Everyone jumps in the hallways. The 2 security guards I know come running out like this. They look at me. I'm standing there like this. And he goes, "Where'd he go?" I'm like, "What?" Because nothing ever happened. So I go, "What?" He goes, "The monkey." I go, "That wasn't a monkey. That was 2 little kids. We're doing this Ewok skit. It's going to be awesome." And they're like, look, they're like, "Ewok skit? What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Ewoks." And I'm like, and someone from the Roots goes, "What the fuck? That ain't no Ewok," like that. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say, but I was like getting embarrassed. I'm like, "Oh my God, dude, I'm here. I'm never going to be back on the show." A full-grown baboon ran down the hall. He ran into Dr. Oz's office. He shit and pissed on his desk. Kevin came in. He was sitting on the chair with his legs crossed. Kevin came in. He jumped on Kevin. Kevin's holding him. They're walking back down the hall of Rockefeller, and people are just peeking through doors, holding the baboon on a leash. And Mickey comes into my dressing room and sits on my countertop, and he's eating grapes and raisins and hanging out, and like nothing ever happened. And it was the craziest thing ever. And we're in the dressing room. All of a sudden the door knocks, and Dr. Oz goes, "Musial." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Your monkey friend shit and pissed on my desk. Can you get down there to clean it up?" He goes, "Because every time you're here, again, shit gets fucked up." And he just walked off. He didn't wait for a response, nothing. So I was like so embarrassed. I was afraid to walk out of the dressing room. I'm like, they're gonna come up to me and be like, "Jeff, this is the last time you're on." Like a baboon ran down the hallway and shit and piss in Dr. Oz's office. So my friend Kevin goes down there and he's like, "You hang out with Mickey." I'm like, "All right." So I'm sitting there like, "Mickey, that wasn't cool, man. This is a full-grown baboon with a diaper on. Now put a diaper on him." And he's sitting there looking at me. I go, "That was cool, man." He's like, shaking his head, looking at me. My brother's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Dude, that's like not a good sign, but I don't know him well enough to like mess with him. It's not my baboon, okay?" So Kevin comes in the room. He's got all this stuff in his hands in a garbage bag. He goes, dude, he loaded out. It looked like a bomb exploded in that guy's office. So then the next time all that happened, they had us back on. We come back again. He's gone. Dr. Oz is gone. The show is no longer on that floor. It moved somewhere else in New York City. The Meredith Beer show is now taking place across the hall. And I'm like, man, I never got a chance to say goodbye. And the one security guard's like, yeah, he probably wanted it that way. He would have never wanted to say goodbye to you anyway, you know? But yeah, dude, that was one of the craziest stories we ever had at Fallon, like a baboon running down the hallway, you know, like absolutely insanity.
So Jeff,
yeah,
I'm going to let you know something really quick. This is Ben's dream episode right now. He looks distracted, but I think he's just had a heart on this whole time, and he's been distracted by it. Like, Ben is peaking right now for the first time ever. Ben just wants good stories. You're a fucking storyteller, and he's fucking loving it. Like, I've been watching him.
Dude, I love it, Ben. I'm glad I could deliver, because I always listen to your podcast, and they're like, Dave's like, come on, Ben, just fucking ask a question. You're like, all right, you got any good Herping stories? You got any good story? And a lot of people have no stories. I'm like, how do you not have a fucking story? Like, something went on in your life. There's got to be something funny. Tell something. You know, I'm right there with you, Ben. I'm glad I could deliver for you. You know, that's what I'm here for.
In the beginning of us doing the podcast, like Dave's like asking all these questions and stuff, and he's like, all right, Ben, it's your turn to finally ask something, you know, don't be quiet. And I'm like, all right, tell me about a time that you got drunk and killed somebody in a bar. And Dave's like, Ben, we can't be using those. Like, nobody's gonna tell those stories. And I'm like, all right. Let me calm down a little bit. You know, how about what's a good, you know? So I always try to ask these questions that hopefully lead to something crazy, you know, because that's I think that's people want to hear and laugh about and remember those crazy stories. So, you know,
I remember listening, and no offense, Ben. No offense. I love you, man. I love you. I listen to you guys religiously. And the one story when you said that, you're like, tell me that one story about like when you got drunk and beat up that nun or something. You said it. It got really awkward, quiet. And I was kind of like, what? So that's probably what you're referring to. And Dave was probably like, all right, dude. No. And you're like, anyway, tell me about your pet leopard gecko. I was like, what is going on right now? Like, I get where you're going because you want people like, you want to do all that like side of that. People like some of these reptile people don't talk about or get them to talk at all. Some of them where I wouldn't shut up. I'm sorry, I talk the whole time. But yeah, you want to get a good story out of something. You want something that so people are listening to like, oh shit, you know, like super funny. But dude, I love stories.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be anything like real bad or make you look bad. Really, I'm trying to get something going to where people get excited about something talking about themselves. You know?
I get it. No, I get it. It's so funny. You're always like, tell me a story. And some of these people just like pause forever, and they'll look at my phone and be like, did my phone die? Like, and I'm like, oh no, they're just like not talking. They're waiting for something. And Dave will be like, anyway, let's talk about this because the people don't have a story. I'm like, how do you not have some kind of story? Something, you know?
Yeah.
Not everyone has the gift of telling a good story, bud. And honestly, I said, this is Ben's dream episode. I don't think Ben's ever been happier than he is right now.
Yeah,
that's awesome, dude. I'm glad I could deliver, dude. I'm glad I could deliver.
But well, Jeff, honestly, bud, you know, I'm really happy you reached out. Like I said, you were definitely one of those influences when I was in Buffalo. I wasn't a big fan of the community there. You were one of the few guys I liked. You know, having you on here definitely was a pleasure, dude. I fucking love the stories. Loved hearing more about what you did because, you know, I had an idea what you were doing, but you know, it was cool to learn about everything else. I had no idea. And, you know, you have a very extensive list of animals you worked with. Fucking awesome, man. Honestly, from beginning to end, I loved everything about this.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Definitely a top 5 podcast, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Anytime, man. You want me to get back on and talk about whatever, let me know, dude. I'm down. I love it. I love you guys. It's super cool. Look forward to a Tinley to drink some beers with you and tell you some more stories in person, you know?
Yeah. We'll have to come visit sometime.
Yeah, we're going to hook a GoPro up to Ben and have him just follow me around the show while I'm getting drunk and talking to guys like you. We're going to have a great fucking time. Like, we're just going to do it up.
Good to me. That sounds good
People
to me.
People be like, what are you supposed to be? I'm like, no, just a camera.
Just camera.
Yeah, I'll be yelling at people and be like, "Don't you fucking talk to Ben."
Don't make eye contact.
No eye contact.
You could have the camera on the back taping them, and then you can have a camera on the front of you and hold up a sign that says "Tell me a good story."
Yeah, I love it.
You can tape from both ends, you know.
Full experience for everybody. But fuck, man. Well, Ben's the voice. I want to hear about this sound off, man. I'm sure you got us on 15 other different websites people can go listen to us on right now. So let's hear it, Ben.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Jeff, for coming on. It's been a real pleasure. Lots of great stories. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below. Hit the subscribe button. We definitely have a lot less subscribers than we probably should, I feel like. So make sure. I'm not trying to guilt anybody into it, but for real, your mom told me to tell you to subscribe. So
that's what I'm saying. You got to subscribe. One of the best podcasts out there, you know.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. And if you guys have any comments or questions, make sure you hit us up below. Or if you're on one of the audio podcasts and you want to see what's going on and see what Jeff looks like, make sure you go over to YouTube, check us out. But thank you guys so much. You can see Jeff's face. Yeah, it's awesome. And Ryan's back. Thank you so much. Yeah, over here, I guess.
Yeah, somewhere over there. Yeah, the opposite of where you want him to be.
Yeah,
we're gonna link the GoFundMe for Jeff's institution in the description. Let's help him get through these tough times, please.
Yeah, let's do that. So, and thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys check out US Arc and help them out too.
Don't forget, we take free stuff. Links down in the description.
Free stuff corner. Nobody gave him free stuff this week.
Well,
I'm gonna send you guys some shirts. I got some shirts, old school, like cartoon with me and all these animals, and I got my hands out and it says "Jeff Animal Guy's my homeboy." So I'll have to get you guys some shirts and stuff.
Yes, I love it.
Love it. Thank you guys. Hey, happy Hanukkah, motherfuckers.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas.
Peace.
All right. See you guys later. Thanks.
Bye.